Okay, hello everyone, and welcome to a special meeting of the Cupertino City Council. Today is June 7th, 2022. This is our special meeting that will take place before the regular council meeting. It is now 5:30. Madam City Clerk, can you please take the roll call for this special meeting?
Councilmember Moore.
Here.
Councilmember Way.
Here.
Councilmember Willie.
Here.
Vice Mayor Chow. I do not see Vice Mayor Chow. Mayor Paul.
And I'm here.
I can't hear Kirsten.
Okay, Councilmember Way says that she is not able to hear our city clerk. Kirsten, do you want to try your microphone one more time?
Yes, I apologize. My mic went out.
Oh, very good.
So
Okay.
No,
That's okay.
I think you
I'll
were.
use this going forward.
Okay, very good. So we have everyone save the vice mayor present under roll call. Our special meeting tonight is a set of recommendations from the Parks and Recreation Commission to approve funds in the amount of $96,460.46 for fiscal year 22 to 23 for the Community Funding Grant Program and consideration of approval of final funding amounts for the Community Funding Grant Program to be included in the recommended budget for this upcoming fiscal year. And this item has been continued from May 19th, 2022. Let us see, I believe it is Rochelle Sander, the Assistant Director of the Parks and Recreation Department. Rochelle, welcome. And I don't want to bypass our City Manager or Director of Recreation and Community Services, but if Rochelle, you're here and everyone else is okay with it, why don't you take away the presentation?
Thank you. Good evening, Honorable Mayor and Council members. My name is Rochelle Sander, and I am the Assistant Director of Parks and Recreation, and I will be presenting this item tonight. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. All right. Are you able to see the presentation?
We can see it. Thank you.
All right. So tonight I will be presenting the Parks and Recreation Commission's recommendation for the fiscal year 22-23 Community Funding Grant Program. At this time, there is a City Council subcommittee that has been formed to work through the community funding process and policy. The update and discussion on that subcommittee will be agendized before the next funding cycle, which begins January of 2023. The agenda includes background on community funding, the evaluation process, eligibility determination, total requested funding, the Parks and Recreation Commission recommendation to City Council and a recommendation if additional funding is available, the fiscal impact and recommended action. The community funding grant policy was most recently updated and approved by City Council at their December 1st, 2020 meeting. The community funding grant application process opened in January and closed on February 1st of 2022. The city received 21 applications, 10 new and 11 returning organizations for the fiscal year 22-23 Community Funding Grant Program application cycle. Staff reviewed all submitted applications for completeness and preliminary eligibility. The 21 applicants had the opportunity to attend the March 3rd Parks and Recreation Commission meeting and provide additional information on their request and answer any clarifying questions from the commission. At the April 7th regular meeting, the Parks and Recreation Commission facilitated the evaluation process and provided a funding recommendation to City Council. After receiving public comment on the item, the commissioners each completed an evaluation form before providing their total out of 100 for each application. Staff received the totals from each commissioner and compiled them into the evaluation totals form, which the commission used to discuss and determine their recommendation to City Council. Final evaluation totals can be referenced in Attachment C. After initial review of the 21 submitted applications, 20 applications met eligibility requirements and 1 application had pending eligibility, requiring further consideration by the commission. Final eligibility was determined by the commission during the evaluation process. The decisions of eligibility were based on the community funding grant policy restrictions and guidelines that note 2 things. Admissions to or participation in the organization's event must be free of charge to Cupertino residents unless stated in the application and approved by the Parks and Recreation Commission. And second, more than 75% of the requested funds allocated for direct service costs versus administrative costs. The commission deemed 4 organizations ineligible or otherwise not qualified. Able to Shine was excluded from funding discussions with a unanimous vote based on their pending eligibility. STEM Boost, Silicon Valley Jewish Film Festival, and Monta Vista High School Speech Boosters were determined to be ineligible because they were not free to Cupertino residents. STEM Boost received a vote of 4 yes and 1 abstained. Silicon Valley Jewish Film Festival received a unanimous vote, and Monta Vista High School Speech Boosters received a vote of 4 yes and 1 no. The commission evaluated 21 applications totaling $185,710.46 in requested funds. The commission carried a unanimous motion to recommend to City Council funding these 9 organizations at a total of $96,460.46. These organizations are recommended to be funded at the full amounts requested. The commission considered the historical funding information, attachment E, and the suggested funding range of $70,000 to $90,000 when providing their recommendation. The suggested funding range was included in the community funding grant policy, which was most recently updated in 2020. The commission carried a unanimous motion to also recommend that if additional funds were available, to award the applicants fully in the order based on the remaining rankings. If City Council approves the Parks and Recreation Commission's recommended funding amount of $96,460.46, final funding amounts for the community funding program will be included in the recommended final budget for fiscal year 22-23. As previously stated, there is a City Council subcommittee that has been formed to work through the community funding process and policy. The update and discussion on that subcommittee will be agendized before the next funding cycle, which begins January of 2023. Tonight's recommended action is to consider the recommendation from the Parks and Recreation Commission to approve funds in the amount of $96,460.46 for the fiscal year 22-23 Community Funding Grant Program. Determine and approve final funding amounts for the Community Funding Program to be included in the recommended budget for fiscal year 22-23 and provide direction to staff. Thank you for your time and the opportunity to present. Chair Shu of the Parks and Recreation Commission is also here to answer any questions on the commission recommendation.
Great. Thank you very much, Rochelle. And so what we will do is we'll go to members of the public that have any comments on this item first. And so I have one hand raised on Zoom. That is from Sujatha Venkatraman. And I'll remind everyone from the public that you'll have 3 minutes to speak. And by the time that the first person is done speaking, you'll need to have your hand raised on Zoom, or if you're live, and there are no people present in the chamber from the public right now. But if you do happen to get there within the first few minutes of public comment here, please submit your blue card in order to be heard in public comment. An additional note, you can pool your time together. Everyone has 2 minutes to contribute to the pooling of time. But then you give up, of course, your individual time to speak. And so that pooling of time can go up to 10 minutes. I see 2 hands raised now. The first one is still from Sujatha, and the second one is from Mina Shu. So let's go ahead and welcome Sujatha. Welcome. You'll have 3 minutes.
Good evening. Thank you, Mayor and Council member. My name is Sujatha Venkatraman, and I am from West Valley Community Services. I want to thank the Parks and Recreation team, the staff recommendation for this support. This has been a support that we have been receiving from City of Cupertino to help families and seniors during the holiday time. When families are already struggling, this holidays get very difficult, and Gift of Hope program help supports families. So thank you very much for the recommendation and the partnership.
Thank you, Sujatha. Our next member of the public speaking is Mina Shu. Welcome, Mina.
Oh, hello. Thank you, Council Member. And I just want to say thank you because you led the Park and the Recreation Commission to make decision and to make recommendation on this item. And we noticed that after this began, the applicants for the community funding, the number of applicants increased in last several years, and because of pandemic, we know some nonprofit organizations they stopped some activity, and we hope from next year there will be more organizations come here to apply the community funds, so our city can help to build a better community for Cupertino that will be better for our residents. And this year, all the commissioners reviewed the application and we asked questions. And those applicants from different organizations, they gave some very good presentation. And after we reviewed that, we gave a recommendation with a total number of about $96,000. And we also hope if a council have extra funding, you can just give extra funding to the organizations on the list after the green one and give the funding to the organization one by one by following the sequence. And we also changed a little bit about the policy. So in the past, even organization is not eligible, they still submit their application, but we hope in the future, we will let them know they are not eligible at the beginning, and so they don't need to waste their time. Maybe they can prepare for next year. And thank you, Council, for taking time review this, our recommendation. Thanks.
Okay, thank you very much, Mina. And so we'll go ahead and bring this to our city clerk. Madam City Clerk, were there any blue cards from members of the public here?
No, Mayor.
And were there any emails that came in during the time for the first speaker that wanted to be read into the record?
No, Mayor, there were not.
Okay. So let's go ahead. Actually, I do see one more person with a hand raised. And given our limited number of people, let's just go ahead. If that's okay with members of council. I see a head nod and another head nod. Okay, so I have a Karen Scussel that is waiting to speak. And welcome, Karen. You'll have 3 minutes. Again, this is the study session on grant funding that is in front of City Council, but was previously evaluated by a Parks and Rec Commission. Welcome, Karen.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you, City Council. I am a board member and I also volunteer with an organization, Women SV. And this is the first time that we've applied to the City of Cupertino. So we were delighted to be included in the Parks and Recreation recommendation to the city. For those of you that may not be familiar with Women SV, we serve survivors of intimate partner abuse. And many people do not realize that in our own community, this wealthy community of Cupertino and the Bay Area, there are many women and children, their children, who suffer in silence, sort of prisoners in their own home. And so what we do is our mission is to empower survivors. We train providers in education, provide education to the community to break the cycle of covert abuse and coercive control. Our vision is that every woman and every child can exercise their fundamental human right to live in peace, safety, and freedom in their own home. What we've seen with the pandemic is more and more women are experiencing intimate partner abuse, and they're not the avenues for them to seek assistance. We've seen an increase in the number of women from Cupertino approaching us for assistance. And so I just want to thank you very much for this consideration, and I hope that you will approve the recommended amount for our agency. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you very much, Karen. And that will bring it back to the dais. And are there any members of council that have questions of the presenter I see one hand raised from Councilmember Wei. That's on Zoom. So Councilmember Wei, why don't you start us off with questions?
Thank you, Mayor. I have a couple of questions. One is for OmniWare Networks. It says at least 2 board members and 2 staff. Are they the same people, board members and staff? That's my first question. And my second question on this organization is a nonprofit board usually has 3 minimum board members, a president, a secretary, and a treasurer. I'm a little concerned that this nonprofit only has 2 board members. Can somebody answer that question too?
Okay,
That's
great.
my first question.
Thank you for the question, Councilmember Wei. And Rochelle or someone from the Parks and Rec or the Rec and Community Services Department. Rochelle.
So that wasn't a question that was asked during the Parks and Rec, and it's not one of the application questions, so I do not know the answer to that.
Is there a representative from this organization here that would care to answer that question? And I'll just invite hands, or I suppose that's the only way to be seen here. I don't see hands being raised or any hands being raised from the attendees list. So why don't we move on to your next questions?
Okay, it's for the same organization. It says they would do an art display in various local venues from May to September. Do they have venues, and what? I have a question on this organization because the only 2 activities listed is in October 2001 via Zoom and October 2020 in Palo Alto via Zoom in the Palo Alto, East Palo Alto Library. So I'm just really a little concerned on this legitimate, how this organization, whether it's a legit nonprofit or not. Because as far as I understand, for a nonprofit board to be valid, it has to have 3 board members. And if 2 board members are the 2 staff, I just want to know a little bit more of this organization.
Well, why don't we couch it like this, Councilmember Wei, and if any member of staff has knowledge of this, or I invite our representative from the Parks and Rec Commission as well, is the criteria for qualification as a nonprofit organization part of something that's evaluated in the application, or was that question raised, or is it otherwise answerable by the people that we have here?
Yes, they do need to be a nonprofit organization. So that is something that we look into, and OmniWare Networks was someone that is a nonprofit organization. However, the specifics of your questions, I do not know the responses to.
Okay, well, why don't we get a little bit of clarity on this, Rochelle? What kind of checking is done to ensure that this is a nonprofit organization?
So we go through the IRS website.
Okay, so the IRS website, you just make sure that it is currently duly registered and legitimate as a recognized federal 501c3 nonprofit. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay. All right, Councilmember Wei, that seems to be the extent of how we can answer this particular nature of question. Did you have any further questions on this?
Yes, the only one on the Relay for Life, is it going to be a Cupertino event? Because I know usually we host one in Cupertino High School. Where is this Relay for Life going to be hosted?
So the Cupertino Relay for Life has moved to Memorial Park. The first year was the year before before the pandemic, and they have applied to do it again this year. And I believe this one's coming up, but this funding would be for the next year, and it would still be at Memorial Park.
Oh, okay, that's good. That's just, I just didn't say location. That's all my questions. Thank you.
Okay, great, Councilmember Wei, thank you very much. And let's go on the dais live. Councilmember Moore or Councilmember Willie, do you have follow-ups or questions? Let's go with Councilmember Moore first, since she has her microphone on.
Okay, thank you, Mayor Paul. So I am on the GuideStar website, and it looks like OmniWare Networks last filed a Form 990 in 2007, and I'm not seeing anything more recent than that. One of the things that I was concerned about is when I looked at the art contest, which they had online for Los Altos Hills, it looked like it was for students from the entire county. rather than just for that particular city. So I also have a concern about where the displays would be, because it looks potentially that they would be wanting to have waivers for usage of city facilities, which brings up another question I have, which is where are our festival fee waiver requests? That is supposed to be approved along with the budget, and I'm not seeing that in the packet. And I did send in an email to for this agenda item with some attachments regarding the fee festival waivers, which we've had in the past. And for instance, I did a public records request for 2015 events. We waived $64,000. 2016, we waived $46,000. For 2017 to 18, we waived $120,000. 2018 and 19, $110,000. 2020, 21, $141,000. And 2020, I'm not sure why it's saying this again. I think they might mean 21, 22, but anyway, it jumps up to $156,000. And so the point is, we've been waiving these fees. We're just talking about grants. So I'm wondering how that works together with this, because there's policies for the fee waivers for the festivals, and then we've got the grant policy as well. And to me, if you're waiving the fees, isn't that a grant? And then lastly, I wanted to actually see if Chris had looked into the use of public resources for gifts and charitable purposes from the ILG, the Institute for Local Government. I want to make sure that all of these organizations, which we are considering, are if we are allowed to be making these the grants. Because there are some rules which we need to be following there. So if I don't know if you've had a chance to look at each one of these organizations, but I would like to have a check on that before we grant the funds. So there's two parts: where are the festival fee waiver requests, and have all the organizations been looked into to make sure that we can donate to them. And I do have the same questions, similar questions as Councilmember Way with regards to the Omniware networks.
Okay, let's go ahead and start with our representative from the Recreation Community Services staff here, because I think some of those questions, or at least part of one or two of the questions, could be answered, I think, by staff. So, Rochelle, as to Councilmember Moore's inquiries, where are we in terms of making sure that any fee waiver for event space is covered in these requests?
So the requests do not include actual fee waivers for city facilities. That is not a piece of this. So if they came to us with that request, it would have to be approved separately. In the way of the actual festival costs, those do come with the actual budget. They have not previously come with the community funding. However, I do know that there is only one current festival that is actually part of the recommendation to be funded, and that is the Relay for Life. There are two other festivals that did ask for funding. That is the Rotary Fall Festival and the Bhubaneswar Sister City Festival. Those two are currently not in the Parks and Rec recommendation, but they did ask for funding.
Okay, going over that particular application, Rochelle, it looks like there's some type of display being contemplated, but I don't see identified a location for the display. Is that somewhere that's already been covered by the application, or can anyone speak to this question?
No, I don't believe the applicant has that set in stone yet, but if they did ask for actual city facilities, it would be a separate ask for a fee waiver. It would not be a part of giving them these funds for that.
Okay, so let's go on to either yourself or Shell, if you have knowledge of the second question in terms of permissibility of grant funding, or our city attorney. So would either of you like to take on that inquiry?
I mean, I can answer the legal question.
Okay, great, Chris.
And the question is whether the constitutional prohibition on gifts of public funds limits the ability to provide grants to charitable organizations that provide benefits or services to the community. And the answer to that question is no. I mean, certainly not from a legal perspective. You could determine that there's a public purpose served by a gift to a charitable organization because it's providing a service that's complementary of city services, or providing a service in lieu of services that the city would otherwise provide. And it's commonly done in jurisdictions throughout the state to have some kind of grant program of this sort. Whether a public purpose is served is ultimately a legislative judgment of the council. It's a fact question, and there's a great deal of deference given to that judgment by the courts, and so it's really a determination for the council to make whether these grants are appropriate.
Okay, Councilmember Moore, you seem to have follow-up.
Yes, so I'm going back to the Omniware Networks last tax return. I'm concerned that they don't have anything more recent, and that one, the address was from Bellevue, Washington. So I would like to have that organization be reviewed a little more thoroughly. And with regards to the requests from the high school district, which is and the Cupertino Union School District, which both have schools outside of the city of Cupertino borders, I'm concerned about providing funding to those agencies in this way, because it's going to go outside of the city boundary, and I'd like to hear some thoughts about that. And also because they are separate agencies that have their own budgets to work on, their own funding sources, which they go after, as we are aware on the ballot. So I'd like to hear some more thoughts on that, because I'm all for supporting our education and the school districts, but I'm concerned about having this be a precedent in the future, and for each one of these organizations, because we're going to expect them to come back and be making requests, and then you'll have new organizations. So I'm wondering where the cap is on this, especially given the CDTFA audit and potential $15 million drop in our budget. So I'd like to hear some more thoughts on this.
Okay, I guess, Chris, you have your microphone on. Did you want to speak to the legalities raised there?
Yeah, I mean, I think my response would be that those are all good questions, but they are policy questions. I mean, again, there is an ability, and it's fairly common for cities and counties to decide that, that supporting school districts serves a public purpose, and there's a substantial overlap between the city's jurisdiction and the territory of the Cupertino Union School District. That said, you're absolutely right that school districts are separate legal entities. They have claims to separate funding from the state that at least theoretically compete with cities' claims on funding, and so I think that's something that council should consider. I don't think it's a legal question, strictly speaking.
Okay, thank you, Chris. And Councilmember Moore, did you have follow-ups to that?
Yes, I'd also want to know if the other cities that are being served by the school districts are also contributing funds from their city coffers to CUSD and the Fremont Union High School District, or would we be a lone contributor And then what's the expectations going down the road? Like I said, won't the expectation be that we will be requested for funds to match what we did last year, and this is very likely to repeat?
Yeah, I don't know if our Parks and Recreation staff has the answer to that question. I don't. It might be that school district representatives are best placed to answer that type of question.
And likewise with the West Valley Community Services, considering we added a $200,000 jobs to homeless project, we also have other grant money. I believe CDBG grant money goes to West Valley Community Services as well. I'd actually want to, before agreeing to this, have a full accounting of how much funding Cupertino already is giving to West Valley Community Services, and how do they rate versus other organizations which we are providing funding for. And it's and also going back to the fee festival waivers. So I guess I'm to understand that we only have one request for a fee waiver, which is for I believe it's the American Cancer Society's Relay for Life. Is that correct?
There are actually 3 requests. However, only one is recommended to be funded by the Parks and Recreation Commission. The other 2 requests were the Rotary Festival and the Sister City Bhubaneswar Festival.
Okay. Okay. Thank you, Rochelle. And I really appreciate that the budget is being reined in on this, because it was getting it kept growing. It looked like without a lot of control. So I really appreciate Parks and Rec working on this, and I am part of the subcommittee that will be working on the policy moving forward. So I really appreciate the work that's happening so far. Thank you.
Okay, great. Thank you very much, Councilmember Moore. Let's go to Councilmember Woolley, and I'll go ahead and just remind, if there are questions or requests for information, go ahead and put those forward. I'll go ahead and ask for a motion, assuming that all questions are done at the point of your conclusion of these questions and request for information, Councilmember Woolley.
Yeah. Okay. So good presentation, but I still have some questions. So I'll start with the sister city, Bhubaneswar. I'm a little bit surprised that it was pushed down to the if available funds category, when they really are connecting important parts of our community, putting on the events at Memorial Park. So why would that one not, considering, when I look at the history, and historically we've been funding them per their request. So that's my first question. Maybe Rachel can.
Rochelle, did you, I guess the question from Councilmember Woolley had to do with, could you perhaps provide a narrative about the Bhubaneswar Sister City request?
Yeah, so I would actually ask that the chair of Parks and Recreation Commission, Mina Shu, answer that question.
Okay, great. Well, let's bring Mina here. Mina, welcome, and you're on Zoom. And so I'll go ahead and if you would please unmute your microphone. Thanks.
Okay, and thank you for asking those questions. Yeah, and thanks. Because for this sister city, I think I remember the commissioner had a long discussion for this one. And we believe the sister city program already got our city's support, like the funding, like all the other support. So, and I think during the discussion, the commissioner mentioned we have so many sister city program. So we are not sure about the guidance for such applicants. So if we approved this sister city program, would all the other sister city program also got their eligible. And because we know our city already gave a lot of support to their program, so that's why we had concern about their application.
I think at this time I would simply say, I hope going forward, like next year, you could actually provide us what support the city is giving, financial or free use of Memorial Park or something, so we could at least have an idea of the support they're getting. Next one, Friends of Deer Hollow. We historically have been funding them, and it's not showing up on the recommendation list. I looked at the applications, and I didn't see an application. Did they not request a funding this year?
Oh, that's because of our new policy. We just defined if they come back for the same project, that's not eligible for the community funding. But if they have different project to fund, they can ask for that. That's because like several organizations, they have the very good project. We would like to support them, but if we always, because their score, the ranking score is high, if we support them every year, maybe we just discourage the new organization. They are looking for funding to start. I think during the commissioner discussion, most of us, we think it's more important to encourage those small and new organizations when they try to start to get outreach, community outreach. They may need more help from our city, and after they got stable funding, maybe they're not so. Our community funding program is not so important to them. And if council have other guidance, I would like to learn. And I also want to mention for the Fremont Union High School District and the CUSD, their application. This is the first year we got their application. So if council members have, your guidance is different than our criteria, I would like to learn. So from next year, we will follow the council's guidance to adjust our evaluation. And I want to clarify. So this CUSD program, I remember it will be held at Sedgwick School. So that is in Cupertino. Just a clarification.
Okay. So sounds good. Thank you for clarifying the new policy. Of course, sounds great that we're encouraging new nonprofit groups that would be in our community to help get them launched. I would also say, though, that I'm supportive of nonprofits that are working in our community for the community, that when they are nonprofits, of course they have to be out fundraising and doing things like that. But if we're able to assist them and they're able to do more, I'm definitely supportive of that. That being said, I'll kind of touch on West Valley Community Services. Probably 3, 4, 5 times a year, I'll talk with Josh at West Valley Community Services, and he'll kind of give me a rundown of the projects that they're trying to do. Most recently, they had the mobile food unit. I think it was a year ago we participated in the ribbon cutting for that. They also renovated their kitchen and pantry for their for the people that are in need, can make it easier to get in and get what they need. I mean, these are the types of things that really speak to me. And when I hear that they're constantly looking at ways to help the community. So if this current grant didn't have specific enough details, next time I talk to Josh, I'll definitely bring that up to try to put down those details for the different programs. One of them they had that I attended like 3 years ago was a day, I'm not sure the name of it, but it was like a day or a week in the life of somebody that is really strapped financially, and they pulled out a so-called name of a fictitious person, and then what their likely status was in terms of income and bills and living expenses. And then we were to try to make ends meet based on their scenario. And to me, that was really an eye-opener. Again, without having funds and being able to do those types of things, more or less, I'd say it really limits them to just being a handout type organization rather than an educational and a real helping the whole community. So with West Valley Community Services, I've seen them, what I feel to be doing just a remarkable job. Yes, in Cupertino and slightly beyond, but clearly helping our community. So then, for the ones that I'm not really familiar with, so STEM Boat or STEM Boost, which appears in the applications, and I'm not seeing it on the list, but we just had the Crest Awards, and I felt really fortunate to be the one to award for the Organization of the Year, which was We Love STEM. And when I learned about the group We Love STEM, which was high school students trying to help get the word of the STEM, science, technology, engineering, and math, to many of the kids in our community that maybe don't realize the importance or how to go about it. Wow, to me that was great. Well, when I look at the applications, I see STEM Boost, and it sure sounds like the same organization. Is that the same, or is this a different organization that is using the same acronym, STEM? Can you answer that question?
Yes.
Well, I see a number of hands raised, but I guess, Rochelle, let's go ahead with you.
Thank you, Mayor. So first of all, STEM Boost, the reason you don't see it on the list is because they were the one of the groups that was considered ineligible due to the fact that they were charging for their program. So it was not a free program. But just to kind of clarify, it is a different group than the Crest Award group.
Ah, okay.
STEM is a very popular set of words these days. And so it is a separate group. I did just also want to clarify really quickly. So Deer Hollow Farm did send me an email at the beginning of the process and say thank you very much to the city for funding in years past, but they just didn't have anything to apply for this year. So that's why we don't have an application from them. And then West Valley is one of the ones that is recommended at this time to be funded. So I just wanted to make those clarifications. Thank you.
Oh yes, you're right. It is on the list. Thank you. But I was also, because there was some discussion, and so I wanted to touch on that. So great, yeah, because I think when we had the Crest Awards, they actually said that they were a nonprofit, and if they were a nonprofit and met that criteria, I would really hate to not give them some funding to, whether or not it's as much as they asked for. That's a different question, but giving them money to work in our community. So since it is different, hopefully this other STEM organization that is dealing with children will look at the criteria and how to go about it, and maybe they'll come back next year. That leaves me with my last one, which is Yongxing, and it's on the if available funds. When I read the project, Summer Youth Climate Steward Program. Wow, when we're talking about helping to get our younger generation, involved in important topics, I would definitely want to move this one up and try to encourage, not only this group, but I mean, when we plant seeds, then other things grow too. And this just happens to really be a very important one, climate change, and being done by our youth, and then maybe even getting more youth involved in it, or other activities that are pertaining to climate and renewable things, things like that. So is there any concern that you have, Rachel, with the Young Zine, or it's just that you drew the line just above it?
I would defer to the Parks and Rec Commission chair on that because they put together the recommendation.
Okay, and I do see that Mina has her hand raised. Mina, did you want to speak to this?
Okay, and before that, I also want to explain. I didn't know the Deer Hollow Farm, they emailed our staff that they don't have anything to apply this year. I just assumed because in last 2 or 3 years, they applied for the same project. So that's why I assume they didn't apply because of that. And for the West Valley, yeah, the amazing thing is every year they present some different project, and that project, we believe that's really help our community. And I just remember several years ago, they said they need a new roof when distribute food during Thanksgiving. And after that year, some new thing appeared in the application. That's why, yeah, every year they ranked high in our list. And for the Young Thing, yeah, you can see the average score of the Young Thing. It's only 1 point less than the green list, the recommendation list. Yeah, so it's very close. And at first, we hope our recommendation budget should be less than 900K because that was about the range in the past. But because of the CUSD, they requested 20. They requested 20K, the CUSD. So if we don't approve this, the accumulative, the total number will be much less than 90K. But with this, it will be more than 90K. We are not sure if council have extra budget to fund the next one, the Young Thing. But we can see the evaluation, the average score is really close. And we also put a recommendation that if council have extra funding, we just hope the extra funding won't be distributed for all the organizations in the blue list. We hope the funding can just go to Young Thing and then one by one by following the sequence. So that's a whole story.
Great, thank you. Mayor, if I have just one more.
Yes, please, go ahead.
So I'm also noticing that the Rotary is down in the if funds were available category. Again, things that help those in our community, especially those that are the most needy, really speak to me. And in past years, you know, Orrin Mahoney has reached out to me and told me, hey, gee whiz, we're having the Operation Snowflake, where they truck in ice and create a bobsled for people with disabilities, you know, primarily children, but also young adults that have disabilities. And yet this year it didn't happen. And, you know, perhaps it's due to the pandemic or something. But for those types of things that are truly helping those with you know, exceptional challenges and stuff, I'm not sure if that's the way they're using the funds that they'd be getting or other ones, but realistically, they're using their money really well, and so there again, I would be struggling to, you know, wanting to get them some funds to help those in our community. So I'll leave it at that. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Councilmember Willie. And I do see that Vice Mayor Chow, I believe it was as of 5:50, joined our meeting. So Vice Mayor Chow, we're at the section right now where we have follow-up questions or any requests for information. So why don't we yield the floor to you to ask those questions or request for information prior to asking for a motion on this item. Go ahead, Vice Mayor.
Okay, yeah. Actually, I joined the meeting from my phone about 1 minute after the meeting, so I've been listening in.
Okay,
But then
great,
the
whatever.
connection from my PC took a little bit of time. So then now I'm switched to the PC. I do have a question. I think there are a ton of amazing organizations in Cupertino doing amazing things. And we have very limited funding. And in my mind, the intent of this community grant is meant to help people to get started for those programs to serve Cupertino residents directly rather than indirect. And then therefore, I think there is this line of one-time event, because if an organization is already well established, they don't need our funding. They can apply for many other funding because there are many other funding sources that smaller organization probably won't qualify. And this is where the city can come in to support. And if an organization's purpose is to fundraise, then when the city provides funding to such organization who in fact donate the fund to someone else, then I do have a concern. Who are we really funding? This particular organization or whoever they are donating to? Then so that's something I think about. And then for CUSD, definitely we should support CUSD. We know that they are short of funding. However, I would welcome proposals by CUSD parents, CUSD students for hosting events that serve the community. But the proposal here comes directly from the school district, who actually will be getting 10 million or more funding from the state after they have boosted state funding for the past 2 years. And now this particular summer program is not open to everyone. It's open only for 250 students who probably are selected by the school district. So I do wonder, first of all, school district is not 501c3. Do they qualify? Second of all, this is not a free program for every Cupertino, open to every resident who can drop in and attend. Then does that qualify? Does someone answer that?
Okay, let's go to your legal question first. With regard to the qualification as a 501c3 in school districts, Chris, did you want to speak to that question from Vice Mayor Chow?
That is a more of a policy question than a legal question. So I think it's really council's decision as to whether it wants to limit this program to nonprofits or to include other agencies such as school districts as potential recipients of funds.
Okay, brief follow-up here.
No, the current policy.
I'm sorry, Vice Mayor. Vice Mayor,
Okay.
let's do one at a time here. So let me, before I get back to you, quick follow-up with our staff. Rochelle, under the policy as stated, is it only 501c3 organizations that are qualified to receive grant funding here?
Yes, it says be made or sponsored by a 501c3 nonprofit organization.
Okay, and so my question and follow-up to our city attorney, is a school district in fact a 501c3 organization?
No, I don't believe so, ma'am.
Okay, all right, so one point of clarification, I noticed on one of the charts it states that the Fremont Union High School District is asking for funding, but that's in fact the Fremont Union High School District Foundation, correct?
Correct. We did update that today. It is the foundation asking for money, not the district.
Well, let me just clarify, because I actually, I make it a habit of going ahead and downloading the most recent packet right before the meeting. So I'm talking about this page here, Rochelle, page 303 out of the packet. Fremont Union High School District is listed here, if you can see that. So it doesn't look like the foundation is listed. So just to clarify, that's the Fremont Union High School District Foundation, correct?
Correct.
All right. Okay, so Vice Mayor, please go ahead and proceed with your follow-up there.
Second question regarding COSD's grant is, this is for a summer program for 240 selected students. Whether this program is on schedule, it doesn't matter. They are selected out of the entire district and not, and anyone who is not selected cannot drop in, right? So this is not open and not free for all. But how does that qualify under our current stated policy?
Okay, so would anyone like to speak to that question? I believe that question is directed to the applicant CUSD, and I suppose that would be for staff or perhaps our representative from the Parks and Rec Commission. And then just a signpost, actually, let's go ahead and finish that question first before we head back to Vice Mayor's other questions. Rochelle, did you have an answer to that one?
So it does not state that it has to be open to everyone. It states that it has to impact or benefit the Cupertino community. There needs to be a community need for it. But it does not state it, because there are other organizations that have been open to not only Cupertino residents, but other residents from other cities. However, these are definitely policy things that we can talk about once we get to the committee piece of next year's process. So for this year right now, though, the current policy states that to be a 501c3, they have to identify how the funds are used to benefit the Cupertino community, be awarded once per project for specific needs, not ongoing operational costs. No more than 75% of the requested funds can be administrative costs, and they have to have a complete and submitted application by the deadline.
Okay, great. Well, thank you very much, Rochelle. And so, Vice Mayor, I think your question with regard to the impact was taken. So let's not be repetitive. Do you have further questions or requests for information at this point?
Yeah, I do. So the policy does have a bullet point that states, quote, admission to or participation in the event must be free of charge for Cupertino residents unless stated in the application and approved by Parks and Rec Commission. So this is not exact, it's free of charge. Okay, so what do you mean it's free of charge but not open? So we are not saying it has to be open for anyone to attend?
Correct.
Okay, for example, the library community room. I inquired about library community room reservation policy. Their event to rent a room, the event has to be open for anyone to log in. It cannot be, I only pick these 60 students, anyone else cannot attend. That's a library policy. That's what I thought this bullet means. I guess it's technically you can interpret that to mean not that. Okay, next question is, I understand that Fremont Union the request is from Fremont Union High School Foundation. I read the application, so but then I do have a question about the purpose of the funding. The purpose of the foundation, they are asking, it's actually a contract with a third party that will provide online resource. So it's not technically an event. I guess my understanding is this grant is for event. So is it not?
No, community funding can go toward a program, a project, or an event.
Okay, so then that is still qualified.
It's considered a program, yes.
Okay, and our requirement is they should put Cupertino City logo on their flyer and anything, so it's clear that the funding comes from Cupertino City, right?
Correct. Last year, we actually implemented agreements with all of the groups that are getting funding once you have approved whoever gets them, and that is a piece of that agreement.
Okay, and then next question is regarding one organization that's not selected. I think the name is something called Compassionate Care. Let me find that. So it's called Chinese American Coalition for Compassionate Care. That they are requesting the grant to provide some program that will provide the mental health educational program. So they are eligible, but they are not just ranked high. I'm curious, why are they not ranked high? Are there concerns about this particular organization?
I will turn that question over to Chair Shu.
Okay, Mina, would you like to field that question? And did you need Vice Mayor Chow to repeat the question for you?
I hear the question, but I'm still looking for the application package and to refresh my memory for this one.
Okay.
But I can answer some other questions. So like for the Fremont Union High School District Foundation and for the CUSD, according to our current evaluation criteria, so the council member talking about, because the area including some other cities, Cupertino is not their only city in the district. But in our evaluation criteria, we don't have anything to make such organization, such application score lower, because we only consider how many Cupertino residents may be benefit, how many will join this program. Because for some small organizations, so as Vice Mayor Liang Chao mentioned, we want to encourage the small organization, but maybe they didn't serve so many people. But for the school district, we know they served more. But I can understand council members. I think that's a valid concern, because you mentioned they got a lot of funding, they have more funding resources, and the area is not only in Cupertino. But maybe that means we need to modify the evaluation criteria in the future to consider those factors. So if council member can give us a clear guidance of this.
Okay, great. Thank you, Mina. Let's go in the interest of time. Let's go back to Vice Mayor Chow. And Vice Mayor Chow, if you could perhaps wrap up your questions and follow-ups for information.
Question for one more organization, but to remind you about the Compassionate something organization. The founding purpose, as stated in the application, is to develop a much-needed program, mindful facing grief and loss, to address life, death, and grief and loss situation. I thought this kind of program is much needed, especially after pandemic. We have a lot of people who experience the loss and they need to grieve. So I do wonder how come this program was not selected for funding. Seems to be a great program, so I wonder if there are any concern, please find out. And then the last question about is Relay for Life. And it's a wonderful organization and amazing program. And but there are many Relay for Life chapters who are hosting events right here in our area. I'm volunteering for one actually in next week or the week after. That's by our alumni association. So And this is an organization that fundraise just to raise funding. If we fund one for 6,000 here, should we fund another one? They are going to apply, 10 of them all apply. And this is not a new event, it's a
Okay, let's cut this short, please. We're at a deliberative process right now when you're musing about whether to fund particular ones. So let's do this. I'm going to go ahead, since everyone's had a chance, I think except myself, because I was really acting more of kind of a conduit for the questions. But let's go ahead and entertain a motion if anyone has one at this time. If not, we only have 10 minutes left till the beginning of our regular meeting. And so what I'll do is ask that we go ahead and table this perhaps to the regular meeting. We do have some actionable follow-ups, I'll note, with regard to the organizational status of one of the organizations, Omniware, I believe it was, and then CUSD as a school district is applying. And so I think there would probably be similar questions as to double checking regarding qualifications to receive this funding. I did hear a couple of comments with regard to items that were, or I should say organizations that were not on the list for recommendations for funding, but pretty close. Those were Young Zine and the Chinese American Coalition for Compassionate Care. There were concerns, I think, expressed by Councilmember Moore with regard to our metrics for particular types of organizations, and for various reasons, those included the WVCS request, the various ones associated with school districts locally, and Omniware networks. And of course, Vice Mayor Chow did just mention the Relay for Life concerns. So if anyone wants to bring forward a motion, I'd be happy to receive it and ask for a second. I see I see Councilmember Moore has a hand raised, and Jim, were you gesturing to me to indicate Councilmember Moore? Okay, so Councilmember Moore, do you have? I'm sorry.
I can make a motion to table this item.
Okay, Councilmember Moore, let me recognize Vice Mayor.
I'll second that.
Oh, you're going to go ahead and table and second.
I would like to I have some questions.
Okay, let's clarify where we're at here. Then Vice Mayor Chow has gone ahead and made a motion to table the item. Councilmember Moore has seconded, so that there's a motion and a second on the table. Councilmember Moore, did you want to deliberate on that motion or ask for perhaps a friendly amendment to it?
More like
Point of order, Mayor.
Yes, let's go to our city attorney and let's hear the point of order.
Yeah, so a motion to table is not debatable. So the maker could withdraw the motion if he wished to,
So we would need to go ahead and
discuss it. I don't mean just table indefinitely. I mean continue the item to the next meeting. So we have more time.
So you could do that as well, but that's also not debatable. So it's the question of whether you want to continue discussing it and withdraw your motion, or make that motion, have it seconded, and vote on it.
Okay, let me go ahead, since we are very limited on time right now, and thank you for pointing that out, Mr. City Attorney. So let's go ahead and consider that. I do see that we only have the 7 minutes left. Let me clarify in terms of the motion itself, with it being tabled to I'm assuming a future meeting. Was that what was articulated within the motion? And let me see, and Vice Mayor, this is not an invitation to pontificate otherwise, but was your intent of making the motion to table it to a future council meeting?
And it could be Thursday if that.
Okay.
The time we will continue.
Okay. This meeting. Okay, so thank you for that clarification. And Councilmember Moore, as the seconder, do you recognize that clarification as what you seconded?
Yes, and I would like the information that was being requested to be included on Thursday. So, for instance, the issue with Care Solace is that the foundation is actually going to be using another service which we know nothing about. And when I looked up reviews on it, it makes me want to see some more information about that. Councilmember Willie had a question about previous funding. I did do a public records request. I have information going back to 2015. I don't have time to put it up on the screen, but you can see some of that, and on the website there's previous grant funding on the community page. So there is some more information, and when we bring it back, we can take a look at it.
Okay, and can you remind us, Councilmember Moore, which organization Care Solace is?
Care Solace Partnership for Mental Health Services was under the Fremont Union High School District Foundation.
I see. So that was the nonprofit that was being affiliated with the Fremont Union High School District Foundation, or at least the foundation itself, I think, is also a 501c3. So
yes, and there are other school districts who contract directly and aren't doing it this route. But if we're going to be giving funds to an organization and then they're going to be giving the funds to another, we need to know, because now we've got a third-party situation.
Okay, let's do this. Let's go ahead and give that direction to staff to the extent that you can. Provide that information when this material gets noticed on our special meeting agenda tomorrow. But of course, if that's not possible, please just provide us either a separate memo to council together with an update of the materials for the special meeting agenda, or a desk item if needs be. So, and I know that someone from staff, if no one was taking notes with regard to the follow-ups here, can look at the material that we've just covered, and please, in good faith, try to follow up on the questions and the requests for follow-up material. So, Madam City Clerk, that being clarified, let's go ahead and conduct a roll call vote with regard to the motion on the table.
Councilmember Moore?
Aye.
Councilmember Way?
Aye.
Councilmember Willie?
Aye.
Vice Mayor Chow?
Aye.
Mayor Paul?
Aye.
Motion carries unanimously.
Okay, well, thank you very much, everyone. It is now 6:42. We'll come back and start the regular meeting at 6:45, so we'll see you in a few minutes. Welcome to the regular meeting of the Cupertino City Council. This is the first Tuesday in June 2022. It's June 7th, 6:45 p.m. Welcome, everyone, and we will start our meeting by the Pledge of Allegiance to our nation's flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you very much, everyone, and let's go ahead and conduct the roll call. Madam City Clerk.
Councilmember Moore?
Here.
Councilmember Way?
Here.
Councilmember Willie?
Here.
Vice Mayor Chow?
Here.
Mayor Paul?
Here. Thank you very much, Madam City Clerk. The first item on our agenda falls under ceremonial matters and presentations. That is a proclamation recognizing June as Immigrant Heritage Month, and we're celebrating the history and achievements of immigrant communities across our nation. And I wanted to provide this to the community, not just as a reminder that virtually all of us are in some form relevant, if you will, to the observation of this month. But for those of us who really don't have as strong or as relevant of a connection, that's just something to think about, the various equities of how we approach things. And so I think the immigrant connection is something that unites, I think, virtually all of us, and to the extent that we're observing the equities of indigenous communities as well, I'd like to make sure that we think about that over time. So this is Immigrant Heritage Month, and the city of Cupertino has provided this proclamation. You can see it in your packet, and thank you very much to my colleagues for helping recognize that as well. So we also have another proclamation today. That's item number 2 on our agenda. That proclamation is recognizing June as lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, queer, and intersex, that's LGBTQI+ Pride Month, to honor the achievements of the LGBTQI+ community and to celebrate diversity. And I'm very pleased to have one of our former County of Santa Clara supervisors here today, a person whose service I deeply admired over the years. I first entered elected office about 7.5 years ago when he was still one of our county supervisors. Ever since then, he's kept involved and has started the LGBTQ Museum of Santa Clara County, which we are very happy has a traveling display that will be visiting Cupertino in September. So we have Ken Yeager today, and so we have a couple of council members here. To my right, Councilmember Willie, and to my left, Councilmember Moore. Councilmember Wei and Vice Mayor Chow will probably figure out a way to get you into that photo in some way. But my colleagues on council, as well as former Supervisor Yeager, if you would join me on the dais so that we can present this proclamation to you. Thank you. And Supervisor Yeager, before we make the presentation, would you like to say a few words?
Well, thank you, Mayor Paul. It's wonderful to be here, and thank you for all of your support for the LGBTQ community. And it was you who reached out and asked if there was any way that we could get the exhibit, which is now at History San Jose, over here at Cupertino, and it was great to meet with you and the librarian at the library, and figured out when we were going to do it. And it looks like around September 15th. I should also say we've done a documentary called Queer Silicon Valley that we're running on a lot of the city's public access channels, so there might be a chance to see that as well. And if I could just say a few words, in my research on LGBTQ history here in Santa Clara County, the first city, and the first time the city of San Jose passed a resolution, and they didn't call it Gay Pride because that was too political, and so they would sort of call it Human Pride Week or something. That when they passed that in 1977, there was such an outcry against it, the city council had to rescind it the following week, and it took 10 years of work to finally get Mayor McHenry to issue a proclamation for the next time in 1987. And so this was something that was always very, very controversial, and the wording really just meant a lot. And because they didn't want to be too supportive of the LGBTQ community. And so with this proclamation, I am aware of the history of it and the importance of it, and we can't take any of our freedoms for granted, knowing that there's always a possibility that the tide might change and we might lose all that we've gained. So I certainly understand the importance of this, and thank you very much for it.
Thank you very much, Ken, and we appreciate your being here, and again, your service over the years to the community. I'll go ahead and provide the proclamation here, and just reiterate the sentiment that, for my own part, I think this is true for the Cupertino community. We're certainly very open and inclusive. I know that we did receive, as you probably did back in the 80s and the 70s, I think you said, that was the first try. Some correspondence, right? I mean, but nothing, I would say, overly overt and negative. It is a spectrum, but from, I think, where we stand, we definitely want to be able to be open and inclusive to people of all creeds and faiths, and this is something that we want to be able to promote in terms of being a robust and strong community. And I think that your service over the years, just the quality of your service, just speaks volumes to being able to get to a point where we can all not just work together, but work together effectively. And so, thank you for all that you've done. And that's really why a couple of years in a row I've asked you to be here and be able to support our community that way. So I don't want to politicize this. I want to make sure that we're making that recognition. And honestly, from the LGBTQ plus community, over the years, you're the person I think really stands out as an exemplar as to not just that community, but how to comport yourself and conduct really excellent service for everyone. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right, let's provide the proclamation. All right, thanks so much. Thank you. Appreciate it. All right, thank you very much, everyone. We are now on to postponements and orders of the day. I'll kind of give the notification to our public. Items 3 and 4 are under postponements and orders of the day. They are respectively item 3, professional turf management contract history, and that was an informational referral from May 19th. And number 4, considering the acceptance of the accounts payable for the period ending December 20th, 2021. So those are both recommended for a postponement to our next regular council meeting, which will take place on June 21st. And I'll ask my colleagues first, are there any other recommendations or requests for postponements or orders of the day, ordering items on our agenda? Councilmember Willie.
So I just have a question about number 38. Where
okay, let's take a look.
Public hearing for capital improvement, and it says consider recommended budget. And you know, this last week we were ranking our CIP. It hasn't been brought back to us for us to go over how all the rankings were compiled. I had requests for edits and things, but yet now we've got this very long list of funding requests, and it seems to me unless I'm confused here, it seems to me it's putting the cart before the horse.
Let's let me ask you this in the form of falling under this particular agenda item, Councilmember Willie. So without deliberating into the item, are you requesting a postponement on item number 38? And if you are, to what date are you suggesting that we postpone the item?
I would defer the date to you, realizing that, like with the work plan, the budget is very crucial in July.
Okay.
And I'm wondering if that's why this CIP funding, and if that's truly the reason behind it, then okay, I'll go along. But it just seems to me that it should come after we've done our final CIP approval.
Well, I think that there is some sense to what you're suggesting in terms of follow-ups being needed. You know, I'll go ahead and support your request. Can we put it on for 1 week from today so that we're not, you know, pushing too far into the month of June? And I'll just let you and the public know on June 21st, I'm not available to be present for the meeting. And so what I was hoping to do was to have this wrapped up, the budget process and the CIP, as well as the work plan, you know, component of this by that time on June 21st. So if you would be willing to postpone this item number 38 to June 14th, I could put that forward as your motion and ask for a second.
The question I have, though, is I'm trying to put the cart back behind the horse, and the horse being we as a council bless the CIP with whatever edits we together agree on, and then we say the budget. But when would we be able to do that CIP review and approval? I mean, if we're just going to bring this back and yet we haven't gone through that CIP final approval process, then I don't know that it serves a purpose.
Well, another way of doing this would be to go with the materials that we have published tonight and not put this on postponements, and then go ahead and provide direction to our city staff based upon what's there and what we can, you know, ask for and follow up. So that might help. I mean, to answer your question, if we're looking to get specific additional material information, then I think it's probably a good idea to at least consider in part this evening, and to go ahead and, if necessary, you know, bring it back next week, perhaps later this week. We do have a special meeting on Thursday, I will point out, and similar to the study session that we just had before the start of this regular meeting, we could end up, you know, going ahead and continuing it to, you know, to Thursday and asking for information as available.
Councilman Moore has her hand.
Councilman Moore has her hand up. So let me go ahead and check
comments.
Zoom to see if anyone else. So Vice Mayor has her hand up as well. Let's go to Councilman Moore, and then we'll go to Vice Mayor Chow.
Okay, thank you, Mayor Paul. I just wanted to clarify what is the status on the work program items, because this is talking about the CIP budget. Is that within is that within this agenda item? Because I don't recall seeing it, and I'm wondering where we stand on that.
Let's go ahead and refer that question to our city manager, Jim, the work plan.
Yes, thank you, Mayor and Council. If you look at item number 14 under consent, that's the final. That puts that last iteration, I think the third or fourth iteration, after your final rankings. That's what that would be.
Okay, so
I would like that taken off of consent. And
okay,
actually,
no, let's take this in order. This is not on consent right now. We're not on the consent calendar. So if you want to create an order of the day or postponement for it, then I'll go ahead and refer that question to our city attorney, actually, because if it's on consent right now, perhaps we do need to take it off before we visit this. So let's do this. Councilmember Moore, are you looking to reorder item 14 once taken, if you take it off of consent?
I think that we need to address, I'll just say it this way, I think that we need to address the city work program ranking and how much that's going to cost, along with the CIP budget altogether. So however we can make that happen, if we could take both of those items and look at them next Tuesday after we've made a decision about the grants on Thursday, and then have it all together at one, so that we know what's going on with each part of the budget, so we have a complete sense of.
All right, let me do this. So, Chris, and I see your hand is raised. Jim, did you want to speak to the comment first before I ask our follow-up question to legal counsel?
Thank you. On the 14th is a PC meeting. It starts at 6:45 and it has an agenda out already. So,
okay, I'm
just making sure we all know that.
Right. So we would be, of course, that I think probably speaks to our other question as to whether we would be able to, meet live, or of course our support staff would need to probably not bifurcate their attention between both the planning commission meeting and the council meeting.
That was a problem we had before. Yeah.
Okay. Well, why don't we check calendars right now and try to take a look at Monday to see if that would be an availability point. Monday is June 13th. I am available that day if we want to have an evening meeting. And so I'll go ahead and ask our other council members. Vice Mayor Chow, would you be able to be available on Monday, June 13th for a council meeting?
And can I first comment on this suggestion here?
Sure. Let's.
Because, yeah. So first of all, in the past, community grant CIP work program is all lumped into one item with the budget, and the council approved everything all in one meeting. So already the staff is giving us a lot more opportunities to comment. For example, this time community grant is a separate item, which was really appreciated, and CIP we were allowed to rank this time. So I don't think the staff is putting the cart before the horse. But my suggestion would be that we should go to the budget item and talk about CIP ranking. If we couldn't finish today, continue that item to Thursday, like the community grant. I think right now, Thursday, we have only one closed session item, but after the closed session, maybe we can do community grant and CIP. If we couldn't finish, maybe we can continue. But then I think it's important for today to approve the budget. We can probably leave the community grant and CIP on approval later, but I think we need to approve the budget today because we have positions that we need to start recruiting. So my suggestion would be, let's not make a decision right now. Let's continue the item, see how far we go today. After we talk about budget and ranking.
Okay, let's go ahead and get a motion on the table with regard to the postponements. I do see Jim gesturing at me. So did you want to?
The 13th, I'm having staff send me over, is a joint commission meeting on Monday the 13th between Parks and Rec, Bike Ped, and Planning. So they'll be all together on the 13th.
What's the subject of that meeting?
6:30, it says Lawrence Mitty is one of them.
Okay. Okay. So that's definitely an option. We can keep this on the agenda tonight, see how far we get with regard to what the questions are. I hear my colleagues here on the dais there and their concerns with regard to proceeding with that. And so before we go into a deliberative or further into a deliberative process, I should say, I'm going to ask for a motion regarding postponements and orders of the day. So essentially, the two items that we're considering are consent calendar item 14 and public hearing item number 38. So right now, under the agenda, there are a couple of items requested for postponements. Those are items number 3 and 4, as gone over previously. Is there a motion on these? So again, that's 3, 14, 14, and 38. And so can we put a motion on the table to invoke further discussion here? I don't see a hand raised. I don't see a hand raised from the dais, but I do see Vice Mayor Chow's hand raised, or it's not raised anymore. So let me go ahead and, Councilmember Moore, your hand is raised now?
Yeah, Mayor Paul, I'm just not quite sure how to construct this. So it would be a motion to postpone items 3 and 4 per the agenda, postpone to June 21st. And then possibly to postpone item, I believe it's 38, the capital improvement program item and the budget, and
to what date?
To Thursday.
To June 9th. Okay.
And remove from consent item 14 and postpone it to Thursday, the 9th as well.
Okay, well, let me ask our city attorney the question that I was meaning to ask earlier. So do we need to go to the consent calendar to pull item 14 first in order to successfully get this as part of our motion to delay to Thursday?
No, you could make a motion to continue those 4 items to Thursday, and it would be removed from consent.
Okay, it would be inclusive. Okay, great. So Councilmember Moore has an item on the agenda for a motion, and those are to postpone items 3 and 4 to June 21st as described in the agenda, and to postpone items 14 and 38 to June 9th. That is this Thursday. Is there a second? Councilmember Woodley?
Second.
Okay. Now we can have a deliberative process here with regard to this. I think we've heard the perspectives.
Mayor?
Yes.
I'm going to sound like a broken record here, but again, this is not a debatable motion.
Okay, so in terms of, even postponements and orders of the day?
It's a motion to continue, that's correct.
Okay, so it's essentially a motion to continue. All right, so we've heard the, we've heard the motion, we have that on the table, and so let's go ahead and, since it is brought forward, have our city clerk conduct a roll call vote on that motion.
Councilmember Moore?
Aye.
Councilmember Way?
No.
Councilmember Willie?
Aye.
Vice Mayor Chow?
No.
Mayor Paul?
Yes.
Motion carries with Way and Chow voting no.
Okay, so we have items number 14 and 38 with a couple of extra days for follow-ups, and items number 3 and 4 we have under postponements until June 21st. We are now at oral communications. Oral communications is reserved for persons wanting to speak on any item that is not on our agenda. And so we'll go ahead and reiterate the order of the communications. Those are going to be on Zoom. If your hand is raised, I see 3 people with their hands raised at this point. And let me go ahead and try to get this. Okay, so I have Tej Kohli, we have Connie Cunningham, Sashi Bagur, and Rhoda Fry in Zoom. I'll remind everyone that you can consolidate your time 2 minutes each. You'll be giving up your individual time, if you're not the speaker, up to 10 minutes. And after we get to the Zoom hands, we'll go to public comments that are live with blue cards, and then we will go to anyone who has emailed our city clerk. That is city clerk, one word, at cupertino.org within that 3 minutes or whenever that first person is speaking. So I'll go back to this list. Again, it's Tej Kohli, Connie Cunningham, Sashi Bagur, Rhoda Fry, Nagaraj Murthy, and now we have Lisa Warren as well. And you'll each have 3 minutes to speak. Tej, you'll be the first person to speak. Welcome.
Thank you, Mayor. City Council,
Yeah, welcome, Tej. We can hear you, but you're barely audible. So if there's any way to maybe get a little closer to your microphone.
audio settings is much better.
Not particularly, but we'll just strain to listen.
Is that better?
Oh, this is much better, yes.
Thank you. Yep, I've got it all set. Thank you, guys.
Great.
And thank you for welcoming me. So I'm a Cupertino resident. With me is my wife, Neetu Kohli. We are 21-year Cupertino residents and super proud of it. We had started to work with the planning division at Cupertino back in January to try and understand in a prelim request how we could split our lot using SB 9. Next slide, please. So in the process between January and now, we've learned a lot. We've had the opportunity to talk to Emmy and PO at the planning division and got some guidance from them. We were then asked to go talk to the planning commission. We individually emailed each of the planning commission members and got some good guidance from them. Mostly they were supportive of the logic we were using, and that's what we want to bring to the table, because from what we're going to share, we think that the interim guidance that the city of Cupertino has created for SB 9 will require a slight tweak to allow what we are asking. So that's the background, and I'll start here. So as with many of us at this age, we are empty nesters, and we live in a large, very old house in the middle of our very large lot on our street. And we thought SB 9 would be great. We get to upgrade our house. Neetu and I can live there and hopefully welcome in a new member into the Cupertino family, that will fill in our schools and do all the other good things that SB 9 is supposed to do. Next slide, please. So many of you are familiar with all corners of Cupertino, and every corner is special and unique in its own way. We happen to live on this little U-shaped street, Columbus and Way, I'm sure you're familiar, which is right off of Bub. And this street is unique in the sense that we have 44 fairly large parcels. Each house is about 15,000 square foot lot. And it's a very quiet street because there's no throughway. And each home has 100-foot frontage to the road. So pretty expansive. So there's a unique charm to this neighborhood. And our first thought when Neetu and I thought about SB 9 was, how do we retain this unique charm for our street? The blue marker, number 5, is where our house is on Columbus, right? Next slide, please. So this was in our prelim submission in January to the planning division. We sent a note saying, look, it's 100 square foot frontage, 150 feet.
You have 30 seconds left, sir.
Sure, not a problem. Neetu Kohli, my wife, is also registered, so she will probably grant me my time, and I'm hoping Shashi and Nagaraj will grant me their. Should I ask them now, sir?
Oh, let's go ahead and consolidate that time. So can you, video, please stop that time and actually reset it to can you reset it to 4:20 if possible? So while they're doing that, sir, I think you said Nagaraj Murthy and one other person, your wife.
Shashi Begor and my wife, who's sitting right next to me.
Oh, Sashi's your wife. Okay. Okay. So
no, Shashi's not my wife. My wife is sitting right next to me.
Oh, okay.
And she also had registered for the thing. She just signed on with me rather than signing on separate.
Okay. So Nagaraj is going to go ahead and consolidate his time with yours,
and so is Shashi, and so is my wife Neetu.
But your wife's hand is not raised.
She's sitting right next to me. She didn't log on separately. Does she need to?
She would need to do that, yes. I'm sorry, what was her name again?
Neetu Kohli. So let's do this, sir.
Well, you'll have 6 minutes anyway, right?
We'll be plenty done in that.
Yeah, okay. So you have 4 minutes remaining, and so we'll go ahead and I'll lower Nagaraj's hand as well as Sashi's, and you'll have the remaining 4 minutes. And if your wife gets on before you get done speaking, we'll go ahead and grant the extra 2 minutes if you need.
Sure. I mean, she'll be scrambling for a computer. No worries. I think you'll be done.
Okay, sounds good.
So thank you.
Sure.
So going back, Mayor Paul. So this is showing our house with 100-foot frontage and the 150-foot deep. We sent this in January. The goal was, let's keep the look and feel of the street. So we decided, let's split it 1-2 this way, one lot in the front, one lot in the back, give a nice easement to get to the back as a flag lot. Both lots become 100 feet by 75 feet, which means they're 75,000 square feet, which is a very ample size and very ratio is pretty good to go build ours. Next slide, please. Cool. So the current Cupertino SB 9 interim guidance suggests no flag lots. And the suggestion is that we split our lot this way. This way we get 50-foot by 150-foot deep lots. We've spoken to two architects, completely unbuildable, non-standard, right, kind of ratio. And to my neighbors, they will see two tall, narrow, two-story townhomes, right? And that we thought would completely break up the way our street looks. And it's very special, and we really want to maintain that. Second, SB 9 allows to split 50-50 or 60-40. This is even more unworkable if split 60-40, right? So one house will get 60 feet by 150, the other will get 40 by 150. Next slide, please. Of course, there are east-west solar issues and all other kinds of things. So we feel that this kind of split, the one that we're suggesting with a flag lot, makes a lot of sense. And it gives you east-west solar issues are gone because the sun rises in the east, sets in the west, and you get south exposure to both. So you'll get very good solar frontage on both homes, and everybody maintains a 100-foot frontage. The other cool thing is for many homes that are built to the front, like the house, two houses to my right, they could do a 60-40 split and not even have to tear down their house, right? So SB 9 could really work for many homes on this street if split this way. If split the other way, everybody would have to raise their house to the ground to take advantage of SB 9. Next slide, please. Thank you. So just wanted to say that right on our street, number one, there's a flag lot, 15,000 square foot. There are 7, literally where I walk the dogs. And if I count more, there's about 50 in just our doggy walk path. So there's precedent. Everybody's had flag lots, and all these flag lots are really wide. And it's important to state that because the Cupertino interim rule that was probably done in a rush because SB 9 came as a rush to everybody was surprised by it, suggests that a house with frontage greater than 60 feet cannot divide it into a flag. And what we're asking is, let's please either change that rule or create some kind of more palatable rule that would allow owners like us and our whole street, essentially. We've had some meetings here on our street that, my neighbors believe that this is the better way to split it. Next slide, please. So our final ask of the City Council is please approve the lot split as we've sent in our prelim request. And we'd like to finalize our architect and start the detailed planning as soon as this is approved. Thank you very much.
Well, Tej, thank you very much. And we'll go on to, since this is oral communications, to our next speaker. That is Connie Cunningham. I'm sorry, Councilmember Willie, I can't call on you as a point of order for oral communications, but you can speak on item number 5 if you want to follow up on any of the items that you've heard here. So let's go ahead. Connie Cunningham, you're next. Rhoda Fry. We have Padmini Natarajan. And Madam City Clerk, did we have any blue cards from members of the public? I'm assuming that's a no because there are no members of the public here.
No, Mayor, but I do have one email when you're ready for it.
Okay, great. So one email after Connie, Rhoda, and Padmini speak. Connie, welcome. And
okay, thank you for unmuting me. Good evening, Mayor, Vice Mayor, and council members. On August 26th, the Planning Commission received the housing element, discussed it, and the chair stated at the end of that meeting that it was going to be going forward to the council. That was August the 20th, April 26th. Then on May 24th, the topic came back to the Planning Commission. I had asked why, but didn't really get a good answer to that. And then during the course of that meeting, Commissioner Wang went on a great big discussion, shall we call it, except I would call it a rant, talking about how badly the staff and EMC were doing and why was this back. And pretty clearly, the only reason it was back was because the commission either wanted it back or the city council was sending it back. Commissioner Wang even overrode the attorney who told him that, that wasn't part of the topic that night. So that went on for some time. And what I wanted to say tonight is that the Planning Commission was talking about how the staff and EMC weren't meeting their targets. And yet that very night, they were having a Planning Commission meeting a month later from their original one. And that is time that cannot be made up by the staff. It is unreasonable to expect the staff to make up that kind of time. And when you get a diatribe on top of it, then it is totally unacceptable. I wanted to go further tonight and say that I had reviewed the topics for the consent calendar. And I had in my mind, oh my goodness, look, that's slightly different than what we had before, but I was happy with it, quite happy. But, knowing the way things go, it could possibly be pulled off of consent. And I wanted to say this about that particular thing. This city work program, I have seen nothing like it, where it goes from 2 weeks to 2 weeks to 2 weeks, and they're going to change it, and you're going to change the way it's graded, and you're going to change, and you're going to change, and you're going to change. The same thing applies. These kinds of delays from the council make it impossible for the staff to meet the deadlines. This particular stuff, the city work program, the CIP, all of it is budget related. The budget is due at a certain time. And who's going to get all kinds of holy heck from you guys? The staff, for not meeting their budget deadlines. I just find it unimaginable that you put this kind of pressure on our very fine staff and do not at least take credit, not credit,
15 seconds.
Blame for your own actions. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Connie. And we will go on to Rhoda Fry. Welcome, Rhoda.
Good evening, council members. Today, the Santa Clara County Board of Supervisors had the Lehigh Quarry and Cement Plant on the agenda. They received a report containing a list of violations across multiple agencies from the past 10 years. You will find my comment on that agenda item under today's public comment. I requested a correction to the report that it stated that Cupertino had only fined Lehigh $100 for illegal grading and protected tree removal without permit. Fortunately, our own Chad Mosley of Public Works was able to provide me with the correct information prior to the meeting. Lehigh actually paid Cupertino over $150,000 in penalties, and Lehigh has already planted 49 large trees. This information certainly changes the optics of the county not finding Lehigh for violations. I do not know whether they will amend their report. The Committee for Green Foothills and I both asked that the county create notices of violations for items that have not been noticed. I believe that this is very important for the administrative record. Once again, I asked that the county do something about the massive landslide above Permanente Creek, which is a health and safety hazard to homes downstream. This time, the board listened. Finally, and this is the very exciting part, the board will be asking for a revised list that separates out the cement plant and the quarry. The county's 1939 cement plant permit states that the conditional use permit can be revoked if there have been violations. I also happen to mention that the permit also promises no more dust than is found in ordinary air. While we all know that Lehigh has been number 4 in our state for particulate matter. So yes, we can say that Lehigh has created more dust than found in ordinary air and has been in violation of their 1939 conditional use permit. In any event, the new report, which is going to separate out the quarry and the cement plant so they can just look only at the cement plant violations, will inform a future agenda item to determine whether Lehigh will actually be able to retain their conditional use permit. And it passed unanimously. The board members all are thinking, you know what, you guys, you've had a lot of violations. Maybe you shouldn't be allowed to operate your cement plant. And stay tuned, and we'll see when that gets put on the agenda, and I'll let you know. Thank you very much.
Great. Thank you very much, Rhoda. And our last speaker on Zoom is Padmini Natarajan. And to the individual with a hand raised on Zoom, just to let you know, you need to have your hand raised by the time that the first person is done speaking. Lisa Warren, I see you put your hand back up. For the future purposes, make sure your hand stays up during the time that the speaking is happening. But since your hand was raised by the time the first person was done speaking, we'll call on Lisa next. So Padmini Natarajan, welcome.
I'm following directions. I hope you can hear me now. Great. I'm Padmini Natarajan, resident of Cupertino since 1987, and we've lived on Columbus since 1993. And I'm just vouching my support for Paige Coley's request. We are completely supportive as residents of Columbus Avenue to his request to split his lot and others perhaps down the road in the way requested by him. And perhaps the city council will be amenable to these requests. Thank you. That's all I have to say.
Okay, thank you very much. Our next speaker is Lisa Warren. Welcome, Lisa.
I did not purposely lower my hand until you didn't say my name again. I didn't even look to see that it was.
Okay, welcome.
Thanks. So I just wanted to mention that last night there was a community meeting, Zoom, held by Parks and Rec or the city staff for the purpose of discussing and presenting the current options for potential changes to Blackberry Farm Golf Course. So I would like to ask that you all watch that or read any summaries of it. I can send you some information. It was a good meeting. There were 50 participants, which is really rare. And I would say 40 of them were 48 comments. I would say some of them were duplicates from, not duplicate comments, but the same person. So maybe 40 of those 50 commented in Q&A. So everyone was engaged. Staff did a great job of running the meeting. And I have some small issues with some of the information, not that it's wrong, just that it was surprising, but it's coming your way if you didn't already know. And I would encourage you to start looking at what is being presented to the public so that we can talk about it a little bit more. Thank you.
Great, thank you very much, Madam Lisa, rather. And so, Madam City Clerk, let's go on to, I think you said you had one member of the public that had emailed you during the first speaker to read up to 3 minutes of commentary over email into the record.
Yes, Mayor, I did receive an email from Jin Hu Bai. Dear City Council, I've watched the Cupertino Planning Commission meetings and the Housing Element Strategic Advisory Committee meetings for the past several months. I appreciate the transparency of these meetings and the ability for residents to voice their suggestions and concerns on the housing element. I was especially pleased to see the arena site selection return to the Planning Commission on May 24th for a second round of discussion, only made possible by the delay in the site selection being discussed by the City Council. It was also helpful to have the excellent presentation on transportation by Planning Commission Chair Scharf on May 24th, and the agreement by Luke Conley at the June 6th Strategic Advisory Committee meeting that transportation issues be included in the AFFH survey that the city is preparing. Transportation is a vital concern of low-income residents that cannot remote work. Planning Commission Chair Scharf and Strategic Advisory Committee Chair Moore have run their meetings in an exemplary manner with plenty of opportunity for members of the public to speak. But it is clear that everyone is frustrated by the slow progress. The delays in Cupertino's 6th housing element cycle are inexcusable. These delays are caused by a lack of expeditious work by EMC and Cupertino's planning department. In every meeting, when the chairs of the Planning Commission and the Strategic Advisory Committee tried to expedite the process, they are told that further delays are necessary, but without any explanation as to the cause of these delays, only vague excuses. This is upsetting to the members of the public, especially those that have agreed to their properties to be included as housing element sites. The housing element process is moving along much too slowly. Other cities in the region already have their draft housing elements completed. It will be difficult for the Planning Commission and the City Council to make up for the delays caused by EMC and the planning department. The mayor and the city manager need to step in and work with both EMC and the planning department to speed things up. These delays are unreasonable, unacceptable, and inexcusable. Thank you, Jin Hu-bai, 18-year Cupertino resident.
Okay, thank you very much, Madam City Clerk. Now we are on to item number 5. This falls under
Mayor.
I'm sorry, excuse me?
Excuse me, there's Mina wants to make a comment as public, but she's still on the panel list.
Oh, okay.
Left over from special meeting.
Okay, thank you,
She
Vice
couldn't
Mayor
raise her
Chow.
hand.
Okay, thank you, Vice Mayor Chow. Noted. So I'll go ahead and call on Mina. Mina, I will now also on Zoom, so we don't have this confusion again, move you over to the attendee list. And so, yes, I can verify that that was in fact a hand that was raised. So, Mina, if you could raise your hand again, if indeed your hand was raised in order to speak under oral communications here. And to tell you the truth, I don't see her name either in the panelists or the attendees at this time. So if indeed that was the case, then I don't see her in the meeting or with a hand raised. So I'll wait another moment. Mina Shu, if you can hear this and you're still on the meeting and wanted to speak in oral communications, please go ahead and raise your hand. Okay, so not seeing that, I'll go ahead and move to item number 5. This falls under reports by council and staff. So reports by council and staff are items 5, 6, 7, and 8. Item 5 is a set of brief reports on council member activities and brief announcements, and that should be since May 17th, which was the last time that the city council met in a regular meeting. And so by a show of hands for our city council, would anyone like to provide that brief report? And I'll just remind everyone that's about a minute or so of reports from activities. And also in follow-up to something that Councilmember Willie had indicated during oral communications, we also implemented this to make brief follow-ups on some of the things that we heard, from the perspective of individual council members. But again, about a minute or so. Councilmember Way.
Okay. So May 18th, I joined the Cal City's Peninsula Division's Mental Health Awareness event. It really is good information on the care court that the governor is proposing. So we have some information there. And on May 20th, I attended the graduation of the class of 2022 from Silicon Valley Chinese School at Limbo High School. Here, I just want to put in, we have lots of nonprofit in our community that's working for our community. Our city should really appreciate that, and this is one of it. And the second is, we all have the Cupertino City's creek cleanup. I'll let everyone else talk about it. And on the 22nd, I joined a San Francisco Qipao fashion show in honor of the Qipao month. It was a really great event. I represented Cupertino City Council, and that was my first fashion show. And we all went to the Crest Award. I'll let everybody else elaborate on that too. I do want to say I attended May 30th. I attended the Memorial Day at Oak Hill Memorial Park with congressional, state, and local public officials, as well as veterans and families in remembering and honoring of people who serve our country. It was a very touching event. So I'm hoping next year we can all go together. Thank you.
Great. Thank you very much, Councilmember Way. And let me see if we have any other hands raised. Councilmember Willie, did you want to go next?
Yeah, so I'll go next. I'll start with the what I feel is most important. Vice Mayor Chow and I are still very concerned about the school closures and what our community truly would like to see from us, that we're here to represent them. So we have composed a letter that that Vice Mayor and I are signing to be sent to them about our concerns about school closures and the fact that we and them are a part of this community, and we should be working together and not finding out things, down the road. That being said, I'll put that one aside. The question about the first public comment and flag lots, That was kind of a question I was hoping that our planning person, possibly Pew, that when we did talk about SB 9, my memory is that she did bring up flag lots, and perhaps she can remind us, because I don't think I remember hearing that they weren't allowed. So I'll leave that for hopefully them. The other comment that we had from a resident that didn't come across very well about the CIP and the work plan, allocating money before we have the tasks defined, as I said earlier tonight, is kind of putting the cart before the horse. We all want things to move along as fast as possible, and if staff brings these things to us in a time to make sure we have the task correctly defined, then we know how much funding allocation we need, not vice versa.
Okay. Well, thank you very much, Councilmember Woolley. Let's, in the interest of time, let's move on to Councilmember Moore, and we'll go to Vice Mayor Chow after that.
Okay, thank you, Mayor Paul. I'll be very brief. I attended the Pride Month flag raising on June 1st, the Crest Awards on May 26th. It was an excellent evening. It was great to see everyone in person, and I can't wait to have it again next year. It was really well done. And on May 21st, I worked on the creek cleanup at Lawrence Mitty, and to toot my own horn, I pulled in over 180 pounds of metal. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Moore. Vice Mayor Chow.
Thank you. So first, if a project does not meet SB 9 lot split standard, can the resident submit a discretionary lot split request now, or do we need to adopt something before they can do that? Can they just submit discretionary approval for lot split?
Okay, very briefly, I see our city attorney went ahead and unmuted his mic. Just quickly, Chris.
Just reminding everybody that this item isn't agendized.
Right.
I will also remind people that an SB 9, a permanent version of the SB 9 ordinance will be coming to council later this year. That's our intent, at least.
Very good. Well, thank you very much for that quick update. Vice Mayor, again, this is very brief updates, and so if you have a list, please quickly go through the rest of it.
So we cannot get a quick answer whether discretionary approval for a lot split can be just submitted today?
I can answer that question for you offline.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you. So on the June 1st, I attended the Pride Month flag raising. That's great. I think we formed a subcommittee last year to look at locations for more rainbow stripe. I'm looking forward to find more locations for that. I hope we get something done this month. And I attended the Crest Award too, and that's amazing to see so many great volunteers who really took the extra step to serve the community. And I thank you, John, for mentioning the letter that we drafted to COC. I think it's in a Google form format, so anyone are welcome to sign. And I am right now in New York attending a retreat for diversity of thought with leaders from Jewish, Black, and Asian community.
Okay.
So thank you.
Thank you very much, Vice Mayor Chow. So in addition to the creek cleanup and the Crest Awards and the Pride flag raising, which we were all at, I attended a VTA candlelight vigil to commemorate the annual the 1 year anniversary of the tragedy that occurred in the rail yard in May. And so I also did have the ability to attend the U.S. Mayor's Conference this year. And so just very briefly on a summary there, I'm really glad that we're engaging with this organization, and I highly support continued engagement in the future. I was able to speak to some really great representatives from the public, nonprofit, and private sectors regarding a key number of issues, including homelessness, vehicle electrification, and their associated infrastructure, carbon tracking, the arts, construction, media, youth employment, and mental health. My office will have actionable follow-ups from each of these areas that should help our city mainly in terms of connecting people with each other. And I'm proud to report that my resolutions, which this council approved for submission regarding lobbying, media, and democratic processes, were all passed and now comprise part of the official policy of this national organization. We had an incredible panel on disinformation. It was a closed mayor only session, but what I can tell you is that the problem is rampant and it is widespread. The good news is that there is also prevalent awareness of this issue. I learned a lot listening to mayors across the country together with professionals working on this problem. So I really look forward to being able to continue the work. I appreciate the words of my colleague, Councilmember Willie. A lot of this, it is a bit of a thankless task to take a lot of administrative cohesion and the various steps that are necessary. But rest assured, our members of the public, we do hear you, we do hear the frustrations, and look at the underlying reasons for them. But at the same time, a lot of work is being done on behalf of the public, and we're looking forward to seeing it through successfully. So. We'll go on to item number 6. This is report on committee assignments. These are assignments that are assigned at the end of every calendar year in December. And so let's go ahead and give a couple of minutes for our committee assignment updates. Again, that's from May 17th until the present. I do see one hand raised from Vice Mayor Chow, and Councilmember Moore was giving me an indication. So let's go to Vice Mayor Chow, and then Councilmember Moore, then Councilmember Way, I see has just raised her hand. So in that order, Vice Mayor Chow.
Okay, on the 31st of May, we had a Legislative Review Committee meeting. We looked at some bills, had a long discussion about the governor's budget, and then in the next meeting, we will be looking at potential advocacy for this year. On the 2nd of June, we had a library JPA committee meeting, approved the budget and audit report, and then they received a presentation on strategic plan and the region they have identified. They will start a second round of outreach, and the final draft strategic plan will be presented in the next meeting in October. Some community members voiced that they were not aware of the first round of outreach. So whoever is interested should be watching out for the second round. And on the 6th of June, yesterday we had another CEP meeting. So the current plan is to have 3 community meetings. We had just one in May. 2 more is planned. However, we are told that the second one won't be held until mid-July because of some scheduling conflict, which is very surprising. And then the staff was unwilling to receive the committee's input on who should be on the second meeting, even though it's 1.5 months later. So our recommendation is to include the employee union organizations who serve the community. For example, CUSD, Employee Union, FUHSD, and even community college, and also the cleaners, the gardeners who serve the city.
Another 15 seconds.
Not been reached out.
15 seconds to wrap. Thank you.
But the staff seems to be willing to prepare a kit in the box.
Thank you.
So that community members can help with the outreach process as ambassadors. Hopefully also a pop-up booth so we can increase our outreach. I think we also need to leverage the county resource so that we can leverage outreach already done to many organizations at the county level. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Vice Mayor Chow. Next, we have Councilmember Moore.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. I really appreciate your comments on the CEP meeting. We did meet yesterday, and I appreciate the member of the public talking about the delays, because we are definitely frustrated by how long this is taking and really want to get to the CEQA process and get that started as soon as possible. And yes, we are aware that our neighboring cities have already submitted a draft. On May 19th, I chaired the Environmental Review Committee, and I want to just have a shout out for the Climate Action Plan 2.0. It came to the ERC for a mitigated negative declaration determination, but if you go to Engage Cupertino, the Climate Action Plan 2.0 draft is available online, and there is a link for that document, which you can get a hold of. I also chaired the audit committee on May 23rd. The mayor and myself had requested that 2 reports would make it to this meeting, but they unfortunately did not. So I'm going to give a very brief Cliff Notes version of it. So this is your Cliff Notes version of the fiscal policy inventory and gap analysis. And what I want to point out is the associated risk being high on these items here: accounting and financial reporting, accounts payable, budgeting, capital assets, cash management, payroll and timekeeping, procurement, revenue, and accounts receivable. The mayor and I will be meeting with the consultant for that report tomorrow. And the other report I would like to mention is the capital program effectiveness study. I won't get into the details of that, but if you go to the May 23rd audit committee meeting agenda item, you will be able to pull up those reports and look them over. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councilmember Moore. And next we have Councilmember Way, followed by Councilmember Willie.
Thank you, Mayor Paul. I just have one item. As a Silicon Valley Clean Energy Alternative Board member, I was assigned to the Silicon Valley Clean Energy Finance and Administration Committee meeting. We had our first meeting. I was elected vice chair and went through the finance and administration, and we will report back to the board. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Way. Councilmember Willie.
Yeah, so pertaining to Silicon Valley Clean Energy, this I'll just alert everyone to that Silicon Valley Clean Energy has awarded 4 $5,000 scholarships to students that have employed ways to explore ideas on climate change, things ranging from harnessing energy to reducing dependence on cars, things that speak to students. I mean, they are the future for us. Also, just to say, you know, the raising of the LGBTQ flag, I feel is so vital to conveying to not only our community but surrounding communities that we really are a fully inclusive community here. And I'll leave it at that. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councilmember Willie. And so to the other items that I was on a subcommittee on, I will go ahead and add that there was a VTA SSTPO meeting. That's Security, Safety, Transit Planning and Operations committee that I sit on as a VTA board member. We also had a West Valley Mayor's meeting. That was live over in Saratoga. So the 5 West Valley cities rotate the chairship of the West Valley mayors and managers every year. And the chair this year is Mayor Tina Walia of Saratoga. So Mayor Walia did very graciously host us, the 5 cities, mayors and the city managers in Saratoga. So that was live. We talked and dined outside, but it was a kind of an open question with regard to whether we go ahead and continue those meetings, which are on a monthly basis in the live capacity. But I think those will probably go forward in meeting in person. So with that, I'll go ahead and move us to item number 7. That is our report on subcommittee assignments. We went ahead and added this because we realized that there were a number of subcommittees that are out there. And let me give my colleagues the parameters, as well as the public the parameters of this. This is to report out very briefly on subcommittee activities. If it's a very extensive update that needs to be done, then we will go ahead and notify our colleagues as well as the public that will be requesting an agenda item in the future, probably study session or other applicable item on the subcommittee activity. So I'll go ahead and first call on Vice Mayor Chow. And again, if you are on a subcommittee and you want to report out briefly on activities that have taken place since our last council meeting, please feel free to go ahead and do so here. Vice Mayor Chow.
Sorry, I think I already reported on the subcommittee.
You did, yes. Yeah, so I just want to... Yeah, great. I apologize for talking over you briefly, but that's a great point. And since it's relatively new, I didn't stop you and just kind of remind you that we have this as agenda item number 7. But you and I did form a subcommittee last year. That is correct. With regard to LGBTQ representation issues. And if you did want to, go ahead and bring forth some of those ideas in more elaborate fashion, then we can, go ahead and update the public and our fellow members of council on an agendized item sometime in the future. So would anyone else like to report out on a subcommittee that they sit on with any member of council? And so I don't see any other hands raised at this point, and I'll just remind everyone that we have another opportunity later in the month on the 21st if we want to report out at that point. So Vice Mayor Chow, your hand is still raised. I'm assuming that it's just artifactual from before.
Should I still give an update about the subcommittee for the rainbow stripe?
I think you essentially provided a brief update there in your updates on council member activities, but let's just go ahead and consider that provided, and you and I are on that subcommittee to consider potential locations, and if you wanted to notify our colleagues and the public that there are some more specific details as to what a proposal might be, let's go ahead and consider that provided, and potential follow-up in the future.
Yeah. So maybe the public can email the council with ideas if they have additional ideas. And another subcommittee is the community grant subcommittee. I think we have not really provided an update where council member Moore and I sit on. We're hoping to examine the community grant policies. So I think maybe after the discussion on Thursday, we would have more idea about. I think it's evolving every year. We are making it better. So what doesn't work, we can change it for the next year. So we follow this year's policy. So that's it. So if people have ideas about what we should or should not fund for next year, then you're welcome to email the council.
Okay, great. So good to keep that in mind. And Councilmember Willie, did you have an update that you wanted to provide under this agenda item 7?
Since we're just kind of touching on them, so Vice Mayor Chow and myself are on the Farmers Market Subcommittee. We're still waiting for the final update from De Anza College, but the De Anza College president, Lloyd, is very supportive, reducing and eliminating fees that would have prevented the farmers market from being able to operate there. Hoping for the end of June, the city manager has extended the farmers market stay at Memorial Park, I believe through the end of the month, possibly a little bit longer, to allow us to finish that. Leave it at that.
Okay, thank you very much, Councilmember Willie. Let's go on to item number 8. And this is I want to signpost this for members of the community. You'll notice under item number 8, the agenda item is not just city manager update. It is broken down into 2 parts. There are updates on city business, but then there's also a discussion of the format of city council meetings. That is actionable because we're essentially motivating a discussion here as to whether we continue with live hybrid meetings, or we simply at this point go back to Zoom only meetings. So Jim, welcome, and let's take away item number 8, your city manager update.
Great. Thank you, Mayor and Council. So one, besides the other item, the Mayor that you just said, the other item is actually a fun one. The Cupertino Summer Concert Series begins Thursday, June 16th at Memorial Park Amphitheater from 6:30 p.m. to 8 p.m. And the concert series continues Thursday nights through July 14th, so it's always a fun place to go out and enjoy some music. The other one, as the Mayor just said, I wanted to bring this up. It's taking a vote, a straw poll of the council, and it was due to the fact that there's some legislation out there that would continue the ability to hold virtual meetings. We could still do hybrid meetings. There's still the governor's emergency mandate out there that allows the virtual meetings. The other part that I've been watching in our emergency operations manager too is when we came back into this room, we were at about 140 cases on a 7-day average, and it went up to 1,067 cases. So a large increase.
So just to clarify that, Jim, when you say 140 and then 1,000, you're talking about countywide, correct?
Countywide, yes,
Right.
countywide. So we're going off the county's website. So
how's the Cupertino data looking like? Is it similarly?
I don't have that one. It doesn't break that down for us. So I was just going off that. It's just, but overall they're saying they are going up. But as we know from the past, we've been much better than the rest of the county in vaccinations and everything else. So given that, I thought I'd bring it forward. For public safety, council safety, staff safety, I thought it's my duty to bring it forward and at least throw out there a question as to whether the council would want to go back to a virtual type of setup until further notice, or continue it as a hybrid. Right. I mean, right now we have nobody in the audience. Most people are still choosing to do it via Zoom to watch and attend. So it's really just more of a discussion point to see if council wants to go that direction.
Okay, well, thank you very much for bringing it forward, Mr. City Manager. So let's go ahead and open this up to members of the public with their input. I do see 2 hands raised. They are from Lisa Warren and Jenny, and we also have Rhoda Fry now. So let's go ahead. Same application applies for any other item, up to 3 minutes for each person. You can pool together. That would be 2 minutes each, up to 10 minutes. And then please have your hand raised by the time that the first person is done speaking in Zoom. And as the city manager noted, there aren't any members of the public here, but if you have a blue card submitted to the city clerk by the time the first person is done speaking, we'll go ahead and entertain the public comment live here in Community Hall as well. And then finally, if you email cityclerk@cupertino.org, city clerk is all one word, within the time of the first person speaking, we'll go ahead and have our city clerk read up to 3 minutes of your email into the record. So let's go ahead and start with Lisa Warren. Welcome, Lisa.
Thank you. So I was pushing for going back into live as soon as possible, and I'm happy that you were there. Mayor, I remember you speaking, saying the first live meeting how great it was to see faces and bodies. And yeah, not everyone shows up. I'm not there tonight, but I have been there in person. My hope, though, at that time when I was pushing for, kept wondering when, is I would hope that not just council members, city manager, and potentially city attorney, but all, and of course, Kirsten, city clerk, needs to be there, and she has been. It's beneficial, I believe, for the public to be participating in meetings where all of staff is live, not just some. So I'm not sure that, and I have to tell you the reason for that is there's been complaints over the years now that some of the city staff that are working, Zooming from home or wherever, have so many very obvious distractions, and it doesn't feel like full attention often is being given to the meeting, and that's unfortunate. And like I said, there were many people who commented on that. So I'm saying all that because this is the only opportunity to say that since we started. But yeah, there's a huge uptick, and it's crazy out of control again in a different way. So if you all feel more comfortable not doing that, not being there for another period of time until hopefully soon we can get back in, but then get everyone there, please. Because I think it's important. And also as big projects come up, and perhaps if the person and entity that is running the show for Valco or the Rise had wanted to participate in the last meeting that you had, it would have been really great if they were there live. So that's just my point. Live is better, but it really should be everyone. And hybrid is convenient. As of today, I could not be there at 5 the early time, so I didn't want to stop and then drive over there now. So anyway, there you go. Thank you.
Thank you, Lisa. Our next speaker is Jenny. Welcome, Jenny.
There we are. Hi, everybody. I'm glad we're having this discussion. I prefer that we just keep on with what we're doing now, where we have the choice of coming in if we want to, or we can, if it works in some situation, if one is better off at home. I was actually in Orlando a week or two ago, and I had planned to try to come into the meeting on the 23rd, but it's 3 hours, everybody's gone to bed. But also I've been running to Santa Cruz back and forth, and it's nice to know that you have the option that if you want to come in, if you happen to be there, you can. I almost came in tonight, but we've got some other drama going on with the car. And I thought, okay, that's fine. I can just come in on Zoom. But I was there, I think, a couple of times. And I see tonight that some of you were there and some of you are at other places. And I think at this point, with the craziness that we've had from COVID and all the craziness from people are having to go back into work or working from home again, et cetera, trying to be places in different times. I mean, to me, having the ability to be there or come in on Zoom or for the first half an hour, I just watched this on TV tonight because we had some other things going on with the rental car. So I'm really glad in this situation that we have the ability to have both of these available. I'm also very, very concerned if we go back to just Zoom. I'm really concerned that some of the political drama that was going on statewide, I really feel like the public was left out of a lot of the things going on in the political arena in California because we couldn't go anywhere because of the COVID. And so I really don't want to go just back to just Zoom. I really want to know that I can come in and see you guys, feel comfortable that my city council is there, because I will tell you right now, I voted very differently on the ballot today. I ran in and I voted in person at one of the libraries, but I voted because of what happened with COVID, et cetera. I voted very differently than I normally would have for people completely different. But I don't want to feel isolated from my politicians anymore, and being able to come into the same building where you guys are and see you there is very reassuring to me that local governance is not being obliterated in this state. So to me, it's a security thing. Seeing you guys there and being able to come in and see our folks there really is very, very reassuring to me in this extremely upsetting political time. Thank you.
Thank you, Jennifer. Our next speaker is Rhoda Fry. Welcome, Rhoda.
Good evening, council members. I do like the hybrid option, and it's also a greener way to attend meetings. The thing that worries me when I see y'all on the dais is that you're all sitting next to each other, and I'm wondering whether it'd be possible to put up some protective acrylic separators between you guys up there, because I worry about you, and it would be, you don't want to get COVID, and we don't want you to get COVID, and we don't want you all to be out at the same time. So that's my 2 cents. Have a good night.
Thank you, Rhoda. Our next speaker is Connie Cunningham. Welcome, Connie.
Good evening again. Hi. Yes, I would like to see you maintain the hybrid version. I think that the COVID is very real. It goes up and it comes down, and it goes up and it comes down. My 93-year-old mother, who has been vaccinated twice and boosted twice, went to 2 funerals of friends who did not pass away from COVID, but while she was at those 2, she contracted COVID. And so did 7 other people at those meetings. Fortunately, because of her vaccinated status, she had a mild case. That being said, I think it's all, we always get all excited about everybody getting back together and hugging and kissing and seeing each other and all that stuff. And I really like to caution all of you who are our leaders, and when we see you in those rooms, it bothers me. I mean, I've been very much stay at home through this whole process, and it bothers me to see people getting together indoors. Outdoors, I'm pretty good with that, but indoors, where you're all breathing the same air all the time, and especially if other people are coming in to that room, you don't know their status. You can't know their status. So I guess I would encourage you to keep it at hybrid, because another benefit to me is that people can attend more easily. People with families, people who have kids in school, people who work different times. It's just, I think you get the benefit of many more of our residents giving you information than you could if they had to drive there. I mean, just tonight, you have people who come here often, always come to these meetings, and yet they themselves were not able to come tonight. Now, I wouldn't have been there because of the reasons I just said, but people who have been coming were not able to. So I just really encourage you to keep it at least hybrid,
So Connie, just to clarify terminology here, hybrid means both live and on Zoom. Are you suggesting that we have both live and Zoom? Because I'm just listening to some of your reasons and I'm trying to reconcile them with, your concerns. So are you saying that we should stay live and on Zoom or just on Zoom?
Well, I guess for my purposes, I think just Zoom is fine. I think that you get plenty of feedback from us. That being said, I know that there are some benefits to being live. I don't want to specifically say that but yes, I prefer Zoom. I'll just say I prefer Zoom and just leave it at that.
Okay, understood. All right, thanks very much. So that should do it for our speakers. Madam City Clerk, was there anybody who emailed in during the time that the first speaker was speaking on this item?
No, Mayor.
No, okay, thank you very much. All right, so let's bring it here onto the dais with council, as well as Councilmember Way and Vice Mayor Chow on Zoom. I'm open to suggestions. One of the things that our city manager had asked me about was whether we wanted to go ahead and proceed with this hybrid arrangement, or whether we want to go ahead and bring it back to Zoom. And frankly, I just felt more comfortable to bring it back to the dais and the public and have that conversation. So to start us off, I can see the merits of either one, and I think that the reality of the situation is that across the country there are convenings and gatherings. I've been following the science on this, and this is a novel situation, of course, but we're currently in what people are describing as the sixth wave of COVID. It is generally acknowledged as being less severe in terms of hospitalization rates. At the same time, the numbers are what the numbers are in the county. It is clear that we have escalated numbers of cases. Having just come back from a national conference, which was held in Reno, drove over there, and I can tell you that there are certainly places where people are gathering in very, very large crowds. And, as you can imagine, the mayors from across the country have very, disparate types of, perspectives and practices with regard to masking up. But I will say Community Hall, as it is empty right now within the chamber, and a few of us on the dais, I think I'm counting 6, there is the possibility for social distancing. I tried to motivate that today, frankly. I put, Councilmember Woolley's name tag a couple away from mine, and there's just kind of, I think, habits that are, entrenched. But we do have enough seats here, or spaces, if you will, to go, person, skip a person, et cetera, which essentially means that we can keep 6 feet away. I'm pretty open at this time, but I do think that there is a point to be said for what was stated on one of the members of the public, that you just engage a little bit more when you're live. One of the points that was made, and I'm not trying to make this more onerous for our staff, but I often think that if we were to have the cameras on, we would get a bit more engagement. At least we would be able to see what people are doing, as opposed to just a name and get a sense of that engagement. And one of the reasons I say that is that I have asked during the pandemic, literally the next day, hey, what was the key decision made on this particular item? And I think there just tends to be a tendency, and I'm guilty of it. I'm not going to lie. I mean, in some of these meetings, you turn your camera off and then you're kind of wandering, and whether it's mentally or actually physically. I want to be able to be fair to people, but at the same time, I will say that it makes the job of a publicly elected official much more difficult if there are people from the public that are basically speaking and kind of not really knowing what they're talking about with regard to, trying to sort out the pressures of the role of public accountability. So the fact of the matter is, if you have, a lot of various pressures coming from the accountability side of things, if you're live, it does make it a little bit easier to, kind of steward some of these questions. And so I'll leave it at that for the purposes of this discussion. I'm open to, hearing what my colleagues would like to do. And perhaps I'll just say that I think we get a little bit more done in the live context. We'll probably keep it hybrid either way. I did speak to some mayors actually during this past, U.S. Mayors Conference where they just went live. They basically didn't, go through the added effort. And believe me, it is a lot of added effort. Having been directly working with our video team throughout all the various types of iterations, and I'm not engaging in puffery. Some of these solutions I actually help to develop in terms of how we in Cupertino engage and meld the video aspect of this with the live component. So these aren't easy questions to navigate, but I think we're at a point right now where either way we can either go exclusively Zoom, we can go hybrid. I don't think anybody would be particularly happy if we went only live. So obviously that's not on the table right now. But personally, I'm open to going either way, with maybe a bit of a proclivity for saying if we can get 6 people on the dais. This is a nice distribution, by the way. If we and people from the public are absolutely right. If we have 5 people fit in, kind of cramped in, it is actually quite congested. Yeah, those are some of my thoughts on this. Anybody like to add to this in terms of the conversation? Vice Mayor, I see your hand is raised in Zoom, and Councilmember Willie just raised his hand here on the dais. So let's go to you, Vice Mayor, and then we'll follow it up with Councilmember Willie.
This is a point of order. We are on item number 8. Technically, this is not on the agenda, but item number 12 is about teleconferencing. So maybe we should save the deliberation to number 12.
Let me respond to that, Vice Mayor Chow. So your point of, okay, so someone has, oh, that's me, I'm sorry. So your point of order is noted. However, the city attorney has already constructed the language of item number 8, as I indicated at the beginning of the item, where I'll note again, I'll refer you to 8B, discussion of format of city council meetings, and the recommended action is, quote, receive city manager update on city business and provide direction on whether city council meetings should be hybrid or fully remote. So we're squarely within the purview of what we can be discussing and directing. So did you have any further comments on that?
Right.
On this
Then I'll comment on that. So then I would prefer that we stay hybrid because initially I was resistant that we have to come back in person. Yeah, it takes time to go to the council, to the city hall, and all that. But I think we need to be in person so that if any member of the public wants to reach out to us, couldn't reach out to us, at least there is a day, 2 days in a month, we will be at the city hall, the community hall. They can stay, and when we're on break, they can talk to us. When I was grassroots resident, some council members did not respond to our email. That was the only time we can get some FaceTime with them. And I don't want to take that away from residents. So I think we need to keep that option. And there are people who prefer still in-person meetings. So if it's possible, Right now in New York, oddly in this meeting, we're in the same room all day. No one wear masks here. I took a COVID test this morning just to be sure. I have negative before the meeting. I will take one after, but yeah, that's anyway. So I would prefer we keep the hybrid option, but should we be sitting more separately, further apart, maybe, or we can think about that.
Vice Mayor, if you're wrapping your comment, I'll just interject very quickly before we go to Councilmember Willie.
Yes.
I mean, personally, I would prefer that we just have 3 council members on the dais, and that allows us to get more space, frankly, like we have this evening. And just to formalize it, I know that doing kind of like the seating order on the fly, maybe there's resistance to that. But if you'll notice, if you're looking at the pan shot on Zoom, or if video changes over to the middle camera, you see 2 empty chairs on one side on my right and 2 empty chairs on my left. So, I think the space is there to have our city clerk, city attorney, city manager, as well as 3 council members. And so, I think as the chair of the meeting, for our city council, I would be here unless I'm not available. But outside of that, I think if we could arrange a schedule maybe for council members, a couple council members to take the meeting remotely, that would give us more dais space. For instance, if we were kind of, on the bent of doing this a little bit more, regularly on a hybrid basis. Councilmember Moore, let me go to Councilmember Way, and then we'll go to you with your hand raised. Councilmember Willie. I'm sorry, I misspoke. I said Councilmember Way, but Councilmember Willie.
Yeah, I think it's good to get each of us our comments. While I clearly support, being here in person, if at all possible, but I also want to say that with the infection rate going up and down, I think we should all just be aware that that could change on a moment's notice, and it's better safe than sorry. So as long as we all know that if there is a wave in this, small locale, we would have the ability to say, we need to play it safe this week and have a remote meeting and come back as soon as possible, realizing individually contracting COVID, wow, maybe it's not good, but it's not terrible. As soon as we walk in the door at home, the whole family is affected. And our life is our family. And so if there is a sense of hesitation, then I think we need to play it safe. And so I'll just leave it at that. Thanks.
Okay, thank you, Councilmember Willie. And then Councilmember Moore, and we'll, I think, probably entertain a motion after that if there are no other initial hands raised.
Okay, thank you. I do see 2 empty seats on the ends of the dais here. I personally am comfortable with coming into the meetings, and if the question is whether or not there's a preference, I like the hybrid that we're doing now, and it seems to be working. I did actually have a comment on the city manager update, having received a Cupertino Matters email, and I hope that the staff turnover can be referenced, because there was, I'm going to say, a cherry-picked data point that indicates an 87% amount above the median turnover, but that's neglecting to point out the negative 43% the year before and the negative 13% the year before that. So I'm hoping that you get a chance to look at it. I forwarded it to you so that you can make a comment, and I know that you've provided some information about the number of positions which are vacant. So as you know, if you can take data and present it in all different ways to support a position, and I want to make sure that the situation in Cupertino. I believe that there's maybe 14 or 15 vacancies currently. I'd like to have the public understand if that's historically similar. Is it, have you been filling the positions quickly? How are things going with regards to that? So that the public has a good idea of what's going on in the city and how things are going. Okay. That's it.
Okay, let's go ahead and, Councilmember Roy, did you want to speak to this item before we have a motion on it for deliberation?
Okay, sorry. Sorry, very briefly, I'm in the hotel lobby, that's why I have my mask on. I am actually okay with whatever the council decides, and I'm okay with coming to, and as long as you allow me to wear my mask sometimes, because if I come back from Texas, I will be wearing my mask when I'm with you guys, just to be safe.
Of course.
For your sake.
Of course. Thank you, Councilmember Way. You know, I'll go ahead and gonna go ahead and do something a little bit different from what I normally do. I'll go ahead and put the motion on the table, and I will move that we continue with our hybrid meetings with a recommendation that we encourage a couple of our council members to, during our hybrid meetings, take it from a Zoom video location for each meeting. Can I have a second for this? I see a hand raised from Vice Mayor Chow. Vice Mayor, would you like to second that motion, or would you like to make a different comment? I'm just looking for a second right now.
I'll second that, but then I don't totally.
I'm sorry, I didn't catch your second part after you said you'll second
I'll
it.
second that, and then I have a comment.
Okay. All right. So we have a motion and a second on the table, Vice Mayor, and then followed by Councilmember Moore. Vice Mayor, go ahead.
Yeah, I think if necessary, of course, some council members can choose to Zoom in. However, just seeing the picture right now, I think we have enough space for 5 council members plus 2 staff on the 2 ends of the dais. That would be special. Comfortable, distributed. Or another option is we could have 5 council members on the dais, and the staff could be sitting in front of the council. I think that's a setting for a lot of other city council or school boards. That staff is always sitting on the table in front on 2 sides. So that could be arranged too. But I think there is space right now for city manager and city attorney to be on the 2 very end, and the 5 council members spaced out in the middle. Thank you.
Yeah, I mean, we've gone through a lot of different configurations, and just for the benefit of the public, I mean, when we conducted interviews on the city attorney and the city manager, we went ahead and conducted them live in Community Hall, because I don't think you would want to, hire a city attorney or city manager without actually having met them in person. So we figured out the configuration of tables within the chamber of Community Hall, for instance. So I think social distancing is not so much of an issue. To Councilmember Way's point, we can. There's no reason we're not wearing masks right now, so we can certainly be doing that. So motion and a second on the table. Councilmember Vice Mayor Chow's made her comments, and now we have Councilmember Moore. You were indicating, before.
Oh, no, I'm sorry. I'm just a little bit curious how it is that item 8, the city manager update, has this particular motion. Could the attorney explain again?
Well, let me recap this. Okay, so I guess I haven't been really clear on the sequencing of this. So Jim had asked me whether we can go back to Zoom. Okay, and so I said to him, let me think about it, and then a few days later said, I've thought about it. Let's bring this to the public. Let's bring this to council. And so we then asked, how do we go ahead and have this discussion? So I talked to our city attorney, and the city attorney suggested that we put this under city manager updates, so that we would have an adequate notice to the public with regard to the discussion. So if you'll read again the sub item for item 8, that's 8B, discussion of format of city council meetings, and there's a recommended action under that. So that's how this item got into the city manager update. And, personally, I think it's clear. I can see where the confusion might be with regard to not necessarily realizing under a city manager update that the recommended action in this case would be receiving the manager update on city business and providing direction on whether city council meetings should be hybrid or fully remote. But it is there. It is there in the letter of the agenda. And, it was where we thought we could put it to be most clear and prevalent.
Okay, thank you, Mayor. So in the future, I'd rather see this as a separate item, and that we just stick to the city manager update question and those topics separately. As you heard, I had some information that I would like to have addressed as well. Thank you.
Okay, understood. So I don't see any hands raised further for commentary, and I apologize. My computer is trying to do some updates, so I had to close out some windows here. Vice Mayor Chow, your hand is raised. Did you want to follow up before we conducted a vote on this motion?
Yeah, I agree with Councilmember Moore. This item should not be under the city manager update. The reason we have agenda is the public who are interested in an item could come and speak. But if we put it under city manager update, even though it's in the agenda as A and B, most people would not know that. But for this case, since we have item 14 or 12, so at least it's on this agenda. It's just, I think in the future, it should be a separate item. So the public know this matter is on the agenda. If they want to say something, they know. Okay.
Okay. Well, thank you very much, Vice Mayor Chow. Yeah, I mean, there's a slight difference between item 12 and what we're discussing here. Item 12 allows us to have hybrid meetings, and it relates to the Brown Act, and being able to not have to, in your case tonight and in Councilmember Way's case tonight, post a public notice where you are and include that as part of our notice, like, specifically you're in a certain, location, and Councilmember Way's in a certain location, and you don't have to actually open it to the public, even though Councilmember Way indicated that. Indeed, she is in a public setting in a hotel lobby, but under the regular Brown Act, you'd actually have to post a piece of paper notice to indicate that, yeah, the public can come in. So it's a bit of strange, legal requirement that's a bit antiquated, and yes, on a separate basis, we're working on the Brown Act on a permanent basis going forward. But as we have it right now, we have a month-to-month provision. And so that's item 12. That's the month-to-month provision, the extension of that allowance to not have to do that, kind of noticing. So that's where we're at on item 12. Item 8B is an extension of that allowance, basically. It's how we treat it in Cupertino. Do we want to be hybrid or do we want to be live? But I will say, if we didn't have item 12, okay, if item 12 was not there and we didn't extend it, we could still have hybrid meetings. It's just that, the majority of us would have to be here on the dais. And then again, if you're not here live, you would have to post notice where you were so that the public can come in and speak when the public was allowed to speak. So, okay, so that's where we're at. I have a motion and a second on the floor. Vice Mayor, your hand is still raised, but if there's no further, new commentary, then I will ask that we take a vote on this item.
On second thought, I want to withdraw my second. I'm not comfortable then to act on this city manager update item. I don't think we should have an action.
That's fine. I'll point out, Vice Mayor, that the effect of, I guess, withdrawing your second and not taking a motion vote is just to, I think, carry on as we're going. I'll note that we have rescinded the emergency order, so the city manager wouldn't have the authority to unilaterally say that we're going back to a Zoom environment. And Chris, you can correct me if I'm wrong on that, but I think, we did rescind the emergency order in Cupertino, allowing that to, happen through the city manager's office. So I think the effect would be that we're continuing with hybrid meetings.
Yeah, I think that the intent of this was to seek some direction from the council from a decision that, you know, has to date been made by the city manager and the mayor in consultation. And
Right.
I think, you know, that's why it's being presented in this context, to give the opportunity for some input at whatever level of formality council wants to provide.
Understood. Okay. I'll just, you know, very briefly, I'll make a comment, Councilmember Moore. I would still suggest that, you know, a couple of council members, one or two, you know, take the meeting, you know, by a remote mechanism, so that we could have a bit more space for the time being. That being said, there might be an abundance of caution, you know, being applied here. You know, the rates are what the rates are. There's a very significant percentage, I guess, in any population right now in the United States that's not vaccinated, so we might be seeing, you know, a certain number of that. Although, again, you know, the data does tell us that people that have had it are getting it again, and with Omicron, some people are getting Omicron and getting Omicron again. So, you know, this is there's a lot to consider here. Councilmember Moore.
Okay, thank you. Mayor Paul, could you repeat the motion, because it sounds like you lost a second there, so I was wondering if you could repeat it, please.
My motion was to continue our hybrid meetings. So
essentially continue as we're doing right now.
Yes, with a suggestion, and I didn't make it a requirement, that a couple of council members each time take the meeting remotely, so as to provide a bit more space on the dais. But the obligatory portion of the motion, if you will, would be just to continue the hybrid meetings.
Okay, so I do second that. I personally would want to have the ability to come to community hall each time, whether or not it means that we've rearranged the chairs. But I would like to have that ability, rather than having this choice of, you know, you need to stay home this week's meeting or not. So for me, I'd rather be in person. And until if I see something in the news that bothers me about the rates, that I don't want to be here because I would need to be in a mask or something for the entire meeting, then I'd like to be able to make that choice myself.
And just to clarify my intent on the motion, Councilmember Moore, I want to be very clear on this. I mean this to apply only to our regular council meetings, so the ones that take place on the first and third Tuesdays of the month, and not to apply to special council meetings.
Okay, yes, I understand.
Okay, great. All right, so we have a motion, second. I don't see further comments or hands up. Let's go ahead and take a roll call vote on this, Madam City Clerk.
Councilmember Moore?
Aye.
Councilmember Way?
Aye.
Councilmember Willie?
Aye.
Vice Mayor Chow?
Aye.
Mayor Paul?
Yes.
Motion carries unanimously.
Okay, well, thank you very much, Madam City Clerk. It's now 8:30. We started at 5:30, so let's go ahead and take a 5-minute break. We'll go ahead and reconvene at 8:37 with the consent calendar, which is items 9 through 36, excepting 14, which was already taken off of consent and postponed until Thursday the 9th of this month. Thanks. We'll see you at 8:37.